So we don't actually have any concrete evidence for the Holocaust, okay? So
This is the most random assortment of things on a dry erase board. Are these AI answers? This might be the best YouTube channel I've ever seen in my life. In the last 30 days, this channel picked up 326,000 subscribers. His channel has 343,000 subscribers.
okay, let's start class. So let us summarize and review where we are so far in the story. So there are three major interests, forces that are pushing the United States towards war with Iran. The first is the Israel lobby. Remember that the Israel lobby is composed of both Jewish interests as well as Christian interests, right? Representing...
This guy's... God, dude, I'm not going to make it through this video. Okay.
The Jewish interest is something called AIPAC. And they have a membership of about 100,000. But they're very wealthy. There are many billionaires in this group. So this group has financial power. In fact, AIPAC is considered the second most powerful lobbying organization in the United States. The first is the pensioners, okay? There's about 30 million of them. And their lobbying organization is the most...
It's like Riverside. No, this guy is like, he's like I call him the Gary's economics of geopolitics.
Powerful.
Because everybody saw some video like a year ago. It's like, oh my God, a year ago he said we might be going to war with Iran? How could he possibly know?
AIPAC is second. But also in the Israel lobby are the Christian Zionists, right? So for example, the organization Christians United for Israel.
You see Congressman Burleson claiming Trump was briefed on human/alien hybrids. It's peak Republican insanity, good for the laws, but emblematic of the route of their autism base.
Israel has 7 million people in its membership. So 7 million Christians United for Israel has 7 million people in its membership. So together, the Christian Zionists and AIPAC are extremely powerful force in government. And they want a war in the Middle East in order to advance Israel's interests. Also remember that America is now addicted to empire. Because empire represents easy money. It has to be channeled through the US. And so there are many people in the US who just basically make their money by speculating on money, okay? So for example, Wall Street. And that has made Wall Street extremely powerful right now in US politics. And the third force is Saudi Arabia. Remember that in our discussion of Saudi Arabia, we learned that the major conflict in the Middle East is actually not between Israel and Iran, but between Saudi Arabia and Iran. For Israel, Iran is a security threat because it supports Hezbollah and Hamas. But for Saudi Arabia, Iran represents a threat to its very existence. Okay? So Saudi Arabia must resolve the Iran problem soon. Right? Now, how these three forces manifest themselves is through Trump. Okay? So basically, Trump is their champion. And privately, there's a man named Jared Kushner, who is Trump's son-in-law. He's married to Trump's favorite daughter, Ivanka Trump, okay? And Jared Kushner happens to be very good friends with both Benjamin Netanyahu, who is the leader of Israel.
Am I the only one that feels like he's not actually in front of a real class? I felt that initially too, that this was a fake recording, but I think at some point, students either say something or you see them leave, because I asked that. I felt like it's just a guy in front of a whiteboard trying to make it sound like he's in front of a class.
As well as Mohammed bin Salman, who is the leader of Saudi Arabia. Now, Jared Kushner's father, Charles Kushner, was a very prominent sponsor of AIPAC. In fact, when Benjamin Netanyahu comes to stay in the United States, he lives with the Kushner family. So one night, Benjamin Netanyahu had to stay in Jared Kushner's bedroom, and Jared Kushner had to sleep in the basement. Okay, that's how close they are. And Jared Kushner is friendly with MBS, the leader of Saudi Arabia, so friendly that when Jared Kushner started a private equity fund, Saudi Arabia invested $2 billion. Okay, so through Jared Kushner, these three forces are able to exert influence on Trump. As we also discussed, it's very likely that Trump will become president of the United States again in November, and he will pick Nikki Haley as his VP. And that means that Nikki Haley will be the one in the Trump White House pushing for war against Iran. As we discussed, Nikki Haley makes most of her money from the Israel lobby, okay? The anti-Iran lobby. We know from the first Trump administration that these forces are able to exert tremendous influence on Trump, okay? And the evidence is, one, Trump withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal that would have secured peace between the United States and Iran, okay? Trump moved the United States Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem in Israel, which was a major, which caused major friction in the Middle East. Okay, we also know that Trump ignored the fact that MBS killed a journalist. Okay, so we also know that Trump has been very friendly with Saudi Arabia. We also know that Trump sponsored the Abraham Accords, which is trying to bring peace between Israel and other Arab countries and unite them against Iran. Okay. The last thing that Trump did, which is the most important, is that in January 2020, Trump ordered the assassination of General Qasem Soleimani, who is the leader of the who is the leader of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards. Okay, so from all this, we can suspect that in a second Trump term, war with Iran will be a major priority. Okay? So is this clear so far? All right. Now we also discussed that even though there are these forces that want war with Iran, ultimately it is the U.S. military that must implement this war. And if the U.S. military refuses to go to war, then the war can happen. So we discussed that, unfortunately, the U.S. military is very different from what it was 30 years ago. Okay? 30 years ago, the U.S. military maintained very standard military doctrine. Okay? They maintain three very important principles that all militaries must maintain in a time of war. The first is mass forces. B is...
I got it. All right. Am I sleeping? No, I don't even know what the... this is just like standard conspiracy brain. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say. Like, talking about like Jewish and Christian, like Jewish means religion the same way that Christian means religion. And when you say Jewish and you're talking Middle Eastern politics, you're almost always talking about the ethnic group of Jews in this country of Israel. But maybe you can say that. I don't think Soleimani, I don't believe he was the leader of the entire IRGC. I think he was just the leader of the Quds Force. Somebody in KickJap pointed that out because the Quds Force is like, that's like their international terrorist branch, basically. I don't think we killed Soleimani just because we hated, or because we wanted to go to war with Iran. I'm pretty sure we killed him because because that guy was fucking murking U.S. troops for like a decade, I think. I have to go back and check. I don't remember how long he was in charge of all that. I don't think Kushner started that hedge fund alone. The one that MBS did that $2 billion investment. That wasn't just him starting it. I think it was just, I don't remember what the equity he had in it was, but it's not like his sole investment firm or that he was getting money from it. I can already tell it's just going to be like an amalgamation of like statements that are like generally true with like some crazy narrative to wrap it all up. But okay.
Standard military doctrine. Okay, they maintain three very important principles that all militaries must maintain, different from what it was 30 years ago. Okay, 30 years ago, the U.S. military maintain very standard military doctrine. Okay, they maintain three very important principles that all militaries must maintain in a time of war. The first is mass forces. B is avoid encirclement, right? And the third is protect supply lines. Now, the important idea is that when you fight a war like this, okay, which is traditional warfare, you must have the consent of the public, okay? Because it is the public that sends soldiers, that provides money, that gives you political support. But in 2003, the U.S. military changed its military doctrine to one of shock and awe. Okay, and what shock and awe means is that you don't have to follow these three principles anymore. You can use air supremacy. You also have technological omniscience, and you also have special forces. And this allows you to fight wars cheaply, quickly, and decisively, so that you know.
I haven't studied. Hold on, I'm so sorry. 1 second.
What it was 30 years ago. Okay, 30 years ago, the U.S. military maintained very standard military doctrine. Okay, they maintain three very important principles. The U.S. military maintained different from what it was 30 years ago. Okay, 30 years ago, the U.S. military maintain very standard military doctrine. Okay, they maintain three very important principles that all militaries must maintain in a time of war. The first is mass forces. B is avoid encirclement, right? And the third is protect supply lines.
Is that a military doctrine? The doctrine of avoid encirclement? What about like 4? Don't let your soldiers get shot. Okay. So now we don't care if our soldiers get encircled. We no longer worry about that. And we don't care about supply lines. Is that? I don't know.
But you can use air supremacy. Means is that you don't have to follow these three principles anymore. You can use air supremacy. You also have technological omniscience, and you also have special forces. And this allows you to fight wars cheaply.
Like I don't know enough to say that he's wrong, but this sounds retarded to me. What, did we just invent special forces in the past, couple decades? Were there no special forces in World War II or anything? Was that not the case? Was there no air superiority in World War I, World War II? Did Israel not have air superiority in the 6-Day War? Was there no technological advantages up until 30 years ago? Was that? I don't know, okay.
Quickly and decisively, so that you no longer need public political support for fighting wars. And as we also discussed, this created the idea of hubris in the American military. So the American military, because of the 2003 war in Iraq, are confident they can win any war, any place against any enemy. We know that this doctrine is actually not true. And we know because of something called Operation Prosperity Guardian. Okay? So a few months ago, the Houthis, which are a rebel group in Yemen, they started to attack ships in the Red Sea. Okay? And a lot of trade goes through the Red Sea. So the American military dispatched a massive naval force against the Houthis. Were the Americans able to defeat the Houthis? No, they were not. And so what are the Americans?
Okay.
The Houthis, which are a rebel group is actually not true. And we know because of something called Operation Prosperity Guardian. Okay? So a few months ago, the Houthis, which are a rebel group in Yemen, they started to attack ships in the Red Sea. Okay? And a lot of trade goes through the Red Sea. So the American military dispatched a massive naval force against the Houthis. Were the Americans able to defeat the Houthis? No, they were not. And so what are the Americans going to do about it? What can they do about the Houthis? What's the solution to this problem? You have these pirates, the Houthis, going around and attacking these ships, which is affecting international commerce. And that's why inflation is such a huge problem right now in the world.
Like
so
the Houthis are not just like pirates, right? This is like a well-established family-turned government that has been active in Yemen for decades. It's not just like a couple of wacky pirates. What's dead may never die or whatever.
What's the American military going to do about this? What can they do about this? The answer is nothing. Okay? The American military has no solution. Why? Because
we have plenty of solutions. If we wanted, we could just nuclearly obliterate the entirety of Yemen. But I mean, our goal is not to defeat. The United States has never tried to defeat the Houthi. Well, you could argue as part of the 2016 to 2019 campaign with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia kind of tried, and we did a lot of drone striking stuff there. But in terms of our deployments to make them stop attacking ships traveling the Red Sea, our goal there was not to destroy the entirety of the Houthis. It was to just like blow up basically attack sites that were shooting at ships.
Don't have the forces necessary in order to undertake an operation against the Houthis.
No, I just don't think we want to do a full-on ground invasion of Yemen. I don't think that's the goal. What?
They have special forces, they have air supremacy, and they have technological omniscience satellites, but they don't have infantry. They don't have lots and lots of ships. Therefore, they cannot stop the Houthis. Okay? And what's really important is that Joe Biden has come out and therefore the technological omniscience satellites to take an operation against the Houthis. They have special forces, they have air supremacy, and they have technological omniscience satellites, but they don't have infantry. They don't have lots and lots of ships. Therefore, they cannot stop the Houthis. Okay? And what?
Like we don't. Wait, hold on. Let me check real quick. I'm so sorry. I forget sometimes. Is Yemen an island, or does it share a massive border with Saudi Arabia? Oh, it does. It does share a huge. Okay. So I think you can walk into the country, right? You don't need ships. Also, how far south does the southern Yemen government own? Like, does the north? This is north. The North Yemen government is the one we consider friendly, right? Do they still own the southern part of this area, like where to the south of Taiz or whatever, or Sana'a? No. This is the capital city, right? Of North Yemen? South Yemen. Where's the map? Who's got the map? Yemen, Wikipedia. Wait. Okay. Green, I think, is the current Ansarullah government, right? The Republic of Yemen, I think, is who we consider our dudes. Red, yellow, orange. Okay. That's okay.
What's really important is that Joe Biden has come out and said that, yes, we know we are losing the war.
Like, yeah, hold on. I'm curious. When he says, okay, I'm sorry. This comment just bothered me so much. When he says we don't have enough ships, is the implication that like the Houthis would beat us in like a pirate ship battle? Is that what he's saying? Or does he just mean we don't have enough ships to transport our people? Or does he mean we don't? I'm just so curious what he meant by that comment. I'm sorry. This is living in my head rent free right now.
And attacking these ships, which is affecting what do about it? What can they do about the Houthis?
I'm so curious what he meant by that.
What's the solution to this problem? You have these pirates, the Houthis, going around and attacking these ships, which is affecting international commerce. And that's why inflation is such a huge problem right now in the world.
Look at the topography of the Yemen-Saudi border. Shut up, I was making a meme. I'm pretty sure it's like all mountains, isn't it? In the northern part of that Yemen part. You probably couldn't march troops there. So I was being facetious. But we can transport troops into Yemen. That's not the issue, okay?
World. So what's the American military going to do about this? What can they do about this? The answer is nothing. Okay? The American military has no solution. Why? Because they don't have the forces necessary in order to undertake an operation against the Houthis. They have special forces, they have air supremacy, and they have technological omniscience satellites, but they don't have infantry. They don't have lots and lots of ships.
What does he mean when he says lots and lots of ships? I just want to know what he means when he's, I'm so curious about that. Okay.
Or they cannot stop the Houthis, okay?
Okay.
And what's really important is that Joe Biden has come out and said that, yes,
like, does he think we can, like, oh, I'm just so curious. I'm so sorry. Does he think that we couldn't stop the Houthis in the Red Sea because they have like they're beating us in the ocean? Like they have more boats than us with like cannonballs and they're like fighting back the U.S. Is that what he means? I'm so curious what he means by that.
No, we are losing the war in the Red Sea. And yes, we know that we cannot stop the Houthis, but we are going to continue on this path. Okay? Does that make sense? This is the idea of hubris, not knowing your limitations. And when you are faced with your limitations, you refuse to accept your limitations.
I wonder if he said the same about Russia with Ukraine. Just kidding.
Okay? And that's why when the US military is given the order to invade Iran, they'll probably go along with it because they cannot imagine the possibility that they could be defeated in Iran. Okay? And then you have the Iran Revolutionary Corps, okay? The Revolutionary Guard. And as we discussed last class, they want war with the United States because they're very angry about US interference in Iran, right? So during the Shah regime, which was
It's actually Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, not Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. But
brutal police state from 1953, and the US interference in Iran's class, they want war with the United States because they're very angry about US interference in Iran, right? So during the Shah regime, which was a brutal police state from 1953 and then 1979, the Americans were the ones who were backing this police state. So there are many who are angry about this. They're also angry about the fact that the US continues to protect Israel and Saudi Arabia. Okay? And they're also angry about the fact that Trump killed General Soleimani. Okay? And as we discussed, it's possible that the Revolutionary Guard Corps killed last week the president of Iran, Abraham Raisi, because he was preventing war. Okay? So they want war with the United States. So you see the map, right? You see the logic of this, where there are powerful forces in the United States pushing the United States towards war. You have Trump, who has basically agreed in his first term to raise or increase escalation with Iran. Within the Trump White House, there'll be Jared Kushner and Nikki Haley to push this war, both privately and publicly. The US military has so much hubris that they think they can win this war, and Iran wants to provoke the United States into invading it. Okay? And Iran can have many, so Iran has many.
Okay, so just to be clear, almost all of this guy's predictions were fucking completely wrong, okay? Kushner and Nikki Haley are not involved in the current White House. Iran explicitly tries not to provoke the United States, right? Hey, we're bombing the base in Qatar, letting you know. Hey, 2 hours. Hey, there's still some troops. You want to move them around? Oh, okay. All right, hey, we're bombing you now. Okay, hey, just letting you know. We bombed you. Sir, there was no damage. We obliterated that base, and now we're done, okay? Like so basically, every prediction this guy made was basically wrong, but okay, this is literally the future teller. Okay.
Strategies in order to provoke the United States into war. Okay?
Gotcha.
Basically, the United States is looking for a reason, and Iran wants to give them a reason. And that's why I think war between the United States and Iran is very likely in the next 2 to 4 years.
Especially because if Iran wanted to provoke the U.S., that would be the easiest thing in the world. Just start arbitrarily bombing U.S. bases. Just start shooting everything. Why would you? That's such an easy thing to provoke. And it's Donald Trump. You could literally, Donald Trump's like the easiest guy in the world to provoke to do anything.
Okay, any questions so far? Are we clear about where we are so far before I move on? Any questions? Okay, so now let's talk about the actual war. So here, most of this is speculation, okay? But I'm using speculation in order to help us better understand what a war would look like, okay? So let's pretend that it's March 2027, okay? And Trump goes on TV. He announces Operation Iranian Freedom, a full-scale U.S. invasion of Iran, along with Israel, Saudi Arabia as its main partners. But
wait. Would Israel and Saudi Arabia do a joint military operation? Is that are we ready? Are we at that stage in the world where that would happen? Maybe a lot of progress has been made in the last 2 decades. The only frame of reference I have for this is in that I remember. This is one of the reasons why Netanyahu and Israel were so ass-pained about Saddam Hussein was in the Second Gulf War, Saddam Hussein was like lobbying Scud missiles over into Israel with the dream of drawing Israel into the war because Saddam Hussein's idea was, well, if Israel joins, all of the Arab states are dropping out because they hate these motherfucking Jews. And I remember when Israel got scudded I think Bush explicitly said, "Fuck off! Like you guys just need to sit here and with your thumb up your, eat. You're not allowed to join this war because if you do, okay, Abdul and Al Jamali are gonna hate us." So, is there ever a world where Israel and Saudi Arabia are doing joint military operations, especially with the ongoing Palestinian thing? I don't know. Inshallah, brother.
United Kingdom, UK will be involved. Australia will be involved. UAE will be involed.
You think we're gonna get? You think Trump is building an international coalition to do anything, let alone to invade Iran? I don't even think we could get the rest of the world to support us that much to just bomb their nuclear facilities.
Poland will be involved. Okay, so you have many countries attacking Iran together.
As Poland flies all of its troops over a burning Ukraine to go and fight a war in Iran. Okay.
And Trump goes on TV and explains to the American public why the United States is fighting this war. Okay, and this is what Trump says. First, he says that for the past year, there have been violent protests in Iran. You have religious protests, you have political protests, you have ethnic protests. The Iranian people are sick of the Ayatollah. They are sick of the dictatorship. They want democracy. They want freedom. In response, the Revolutionary Guard are killing thousands of protesters. Iran is on the brink of civil war. Therefore, the United States has an obligation to protect the people of Iran. Okay? The people of Iran are praying for freedom and democracy, and the United States, the world's greatest democracy, must give them democracy. Okay? So the first
I think like the year 2001 call, and they want their talking points back. What the
reason is freedom and democracy.
How could you make this? What about the collapsed Syria for the past decade? Why didn't we go in? If this was such an easy thing to do, why were we involved in Syria? And that has so many implications for everybody. For whatever argument you could have made, like if you were asking me to predict if we were going to go to war with somebody, I feel like Syria is a way easier buy, no? We could make Turkey happy. We could make Israel happy. We could piss off Russia. We could, like, it gives us better, it's just better for everybody in terms of our interests, would be my guess. I wonder why we didn't just fuck shit up in Syria. Probably because the rest of the world would be mad at us.
U.S. intelligence, along with Israeli intelligence, have discovered that for the past 2 years, Iran has been working very, very hard on developing a nuclear bomb. In fact, Iran is only 1 month away from having 3 nuclear bombs, so that New York City, San Francisco, and Los Angeles could all be destroyed. Okay? So to prevent this, we must strike first to stop.
Imagine you're a Jew, and it's like, we just found out Iran got nukes. They've launched them. They've launched the nukes. We're finished. All of West Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, Haifa, Jaffa, one of those. No, sir. Actually, they're going to LA, San Francisco, and New York City. Oh, thank you, God. What? Okay. Yes.
Off Iran's nuclear program. Okay? Third, Iranian proxy.
Regarding the Houthis, isn't he saying the U.S. current approach to combating the Houthis with limited strikes will never be successful because of the way the Houthis operate, and we aren't willing to risk a full-scale war because of the impact on global shipping? No, we don't want to risk a full-scale war because Yemen, there's like 40 million people that live in this country, and this country has been in civil war for like a century, and the people there are starving, and it's a situation, and there's already a ton of international like humanitarian crises. With regards to the last time, less than a decade ago, we were involved with Saudi Arabia, just bombing Yemen. The terrain is vicious. The people that have been fighting there have been fighting for a long time. It would be like a protracted Iraq or Vietnam 2.0 with no clear military objectives, with no clear government to step in and rule over all the people afterward. Like, it would be a clusterfuck of a massive scale. It would just not be good. It would be so clusterfuck. So it's strange that, like, for instance, did our strike on Iran fail because we didn't defeat Iran? Well, no, our goal was to blow up the nuclear bullshit. So the strike was successful. The goal of the Houthis was not to destroy all the Houthis. It was to disable whatever missile launch platforms. So far as that is concerned, I think our strikes were successful. They might be able to build more and keep deploying shit. But I mean, it's hard to combat stuff like that. I love to say, but if I had to nuke one city in America, it would still be Miami because of the girls on Fresh and Fit.
The Houthis.
Base?
Hezbollah. Many groups have been disrupting shipping in the Middle East, in both the Red Sea and the Strait of Hormuz. 40% of the world's oil passes through that region, mainly to East Asia, China.
Can they get all the way around to the Strait of Hormuz? Is that true? I thought the Houthis were just over the Red Sea. Houthis, Strait of Hormuz, maybe? Oh, I like how I spelled it wrong. Yes! Yes! Is he mixing it up with Iran? Iran did the, are they called limpet mines or whatever? That was them a while ago, right? I've never heard of the Houthis attacking stuff up there, but I don't know. I mean, why am I saying I don't know? I don't trust this guy for anything. I feel like he's made too many weird mistakes, but whatever.
China, Japan, South Korea. Our global prosperity is at stake. We must go to war to protect these shipping lanes and ensure that the oil goes to China, Japan, and South Korea so that they can continue their economic prosperity. So the United States, as the world hegemon, has a responsibility to protect global prosperity. Okay?
Yeah, that's definitely a Trump line. How could he be so wrong? Bro, this guy was the Nostradamus that predicted everything. The United States has to protect global trade. And also, the US is isolationist and we're abandoning NATO. We have no obligation to help Ukraine and everybody can fend for themselves. So, like, okay.
4, Iran has been launching attacks against our allies, Saudi Arabia and Israel. Hezbollah has been violently attacking Israel, killing dozens of Israelis, innocent Israelis. The Houthis have been attacking Saudi Arabia oil fields.
Oh, God.
Damaging the economy. We have an obligation to protect our allies, our friends in the Middle East, okay? And the last reason is, we know for a fact that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps is a sponsor of...
It's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. I mean, I've made that mistake in the past, but I'm also not marketing myself as a college professor with the channel Predictive History. But okay.
Terrorism. Last week, in a mall, there were gunmen who went and killed 107 people. Our intelligence says that it was most definitely an Iranian operation, okay? So for these 5 reasons, we have decided to invade Iran. But don't worry, this invasion will be successful because we have a lot of allies. The UK, Israel, Saudi Arabia, all friends will be part of this operation. Our special forces are already in the country looking for their air bases and their missiles. We can knock them out at the beginning of the war. Also,
we don't know where they're the secret air bases that we don't know where they're at. So where are you in? We're in Iran. All right, what are you guys doing? We're looking for the airports. Like, guys, we got Google Maps, okay? We typed in airports Iran and we found them. What are we doing here, sir?
We have been in contact with Iranian opposition groups. They want to overthrow the regime. And when we help them, they will install democracy in the country.
Okay.
Our American military is the greatest in the world. In 1991, our military defeated Saddam Hussein in 100 hours. In 2003, our military defeated Saddam Hussein in less than 3 weeks. To prove that we are the greatest in the world, we will defeat Iran in only 2 weeks. So do not worry. We will be strong in protecting democracy, freedom, and global prosperity. Okay? So that's what.
Also, hold on. I'm sorry. Is he implying we would lose in a war against Iran? Because I think we would beat them in like 2 weeks. Uh-oh. Am I falling for the hubris trap? I'm pretty sure Iran found out their nuclear facilities got bombed on Twitter when Trump was truthing it out. The Khamenei guy, I don't know how to pronounce guys, Khamenei was probably like, what's Trump tweeting about airplanes flying back? And the guy's like, sir, there's a reason. We just figured out why we can't get a hold of Falfo. What's wrong with Falfo? They're dead. That place is fucked. What?
Trump will say to the people of the United States, okay? And of course, you're going to have large-scale protests throughout the country opposing this war. But most people in the country will support this war, okay? All right. So after the speech, the operation is launched. And on TV, we'll watch this on TV and the internet together, on YouTube together, okay? And we'll be so impressed by the power of the US military. This is Iran. This is the Strait of Hormuz. Saudi Arabia. Israel is here. Red Sea is here. Iraq is here, okay? So in the Strait of Hormuz,
what are we doing? Sorry.
Hormuz of the US military. This is Iran. This is the Strait of Hormuz. Saudi Arabia. Israel is here. Red Sea is here. Iraq is here. Okay? So in the Strait of Hormuz,
okay. Yeah.
comes the USS Gerald R. Ford. It's a $13 billion super carrier. Okay?
Okay.
This thing is designed to destroy countries. It is now prowling the Strait of Hormuz to ensure that shipping is safe.
Do you think we could? I actually don't know how much could fit. It's a decently big strait, right? You could probably fit Strait of Hormuz. Is there like a deep sea limit on? I don't know. I truly don't know. Can any ship in the world go through this, or is it? It should be able to, right? Like it's deep enough for anything, right? I don't know what the clearance. I have no idea. Tankers can go through. Okay. Why don't I just pipe it all out?
America establishes air supremacy very quickly, okay? Meaning it has complete control over the skies.
Okay.
Nothing can move in the skies without America detection, okay? And then a massive invasion force is sent to Iran in the south. 100,000 US troops land. Maybe 200,000 Saudi Arabia troops land, okay? Maybe you have 200,000 to 500,000.
Not the Saudi Arabian troops. Oh no.
Troops in Iran. And they are about to strike Tehran. in the north, okay? So in the south, the United States and its allies have established a foothold. They have a huge presence in the country, and they're about to attack Tehran, okay?
Okay.
All right, do you understand what has happened?
Got it, sir.
Okay, now I'm gonna ask you this question.
Yes.
At this point, I think the war has been decided.
Okay.
Who has won the war?
Now, you want to say, you'd think the U.S. would win due to overwhelming air superiority, the ability to destroy literally every single installed defensive platform on the ground, the ability to have an overwhelming technology advantage, and the ability to crush this country on like 6 different levels. That is where you would be wrong, because you didn't think about the camel fighters fighting with scimitar with their souls.
America has established air supremacy. It controls the skies. U.S. Navy controls the seas. You have 100,000 U.S. troops in country ready to strike Tehran. The war has been decided. Who has won the war? Okay, obviously this is a trick question. Obviously Iran has won the war. Why?
Let's go. Let's hear it.
Why?
1, there are mountains, and most U.S. troops come from the Midwest, where there are no mountains, so they're a natural enemy to U.S. infantry. 2, Iran has a lot of clouds. Clouds are a natural enemy to airplanes. 3, no rivers. Our supercarriers can't get into Iran, and they will get stuck.
What's the problem with this plan? Okay, this is typical American doctrine, shock and awe. This is how they fight wars. But there's a problem with this plan. What is it? Why would the Iranians want this?
The Iranians want this because, okay, there's so many different ways that the conspiratorial mind can go off. The Iranians want this because it'll turn the whole Muslim world against us and make everybody hate us. The Iranians want it because we'll get mired down, something to do with Iraq and Vietnam. The Iranians want us to do this because they'll just straight out win. I have no idea. I don't know. Tell us.
Okay, let's go back to traditional military doctrine, okay? In traditional military doctrine, you have 3 principles, right?
3 principles, okay.
Mass forces, avoid encirclement, protect supply lines.
Okay, mass forces. Okay, they got a lot of people. A lot of people live in Iran. I have no idea how big their military is, but they got a lot of people. True. Number 1, avoid encirclement. Okay, they won't get encircled, and protect supply lines. Home field advantage, baby.
Okay, these are 3 things you must absolutely obey if you're going to war, okay? So using traditional military doctrine, explain to me why the United States has lost the war right now. Exactly. First of all, they're encircled, okay? You know why? Because Iran are all mountains.
No, I was kidding. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't mean that. No, just joking. Hold on. Before he gets into this, and I'm sure he's like half joking, okay? To encircle the enemy is when your troops have encircled the enemy and like cut them off from supplies and the ability to coordinate with other forces and everything, and it's about like strategic. That doesn't just mean there's like stuff like geography around you, right? But he's not being literal here. Hold on, I'm sorry.
Exactly. First of all, they're encircled, okay? You know why? Because Iran are all mountains. It's a fortress, okay? Meaning that to get these troops into the country, you have to airdrop them, right? But guys, once you're in the country, you can't get them out of the country. You understand? Okay, so that's the first problem. They've been encircled, right? What's the second problem?
No supply lines, guys, because they can't get up to the mountains.
Why not?
Why not? Because they got too many people. It's like 100 million motherfuckers in this country, bro.
That's right. And why else? Very hard. Yeah, that's right, okay? So they failed to mass forces, okay? Iran is a population of 90 million people. You will need at least 3 to 4 million soldiers.
What? Is that the math? I'm sorry. I'm not.
To even think about conquering the country. They've got 100,000 in this country, okay? And as Jack says, you can't move tanks through mountains. They're not designed for mountain warfare. What are you going to do, okay? So they can't mass forces, and they've been encircled, and what else is the problem? And this is the biggest problem.
What's the biggest? No supply lines, because the supplies can't go through the mountains.
Exactly. They cannot be resupplied, okay? They have no supply lines.
The mountains and the clouds.
For them to be resupplied,
they would have to airdrop in. They would have to airdrop it in. And we've used all of our airdrops in Gaza, dropping crates on civilians and killing them with them. So we have no more supplies either.
Have to drop ammunition, food into the country.
Like it's fucking Vietnam.
But again, Iran is all mountains. So it's very easy for Iranians to shoot down the airplanes. Does that make sense? When you pass through mountains, you can't see what's on the ground.
What? Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. Just as a quick thing. Also, please, I'm laughing. Correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Like, air supremacy, the least important thing about air supremacy is controlling the sky. That's my understanding. The most important thing about air supremacy is that you control the ground. That's the big deal about air supremacy. If you control the skies, that means that you can bomb the fuck out of anything you want, oftentimes at too great a range to even be countered. It means that you can fuck with enemy positions, you've got infinite reconnaissance, you can do targeted strikes on supply, you can do anything you want. Once you've like fucked once you've knocked out all of their anti-air shit, you control the skies, your ability to terrorize people on the ground that's your huge thing. It's not just so like you can shoot down the enemy planes. And when you are fighting for enemy planes, it's because they want air down so they can shoot your ground troops, right? It's not just like we're going to use planes to shoot at all the other planes. And now that we've got air dominance, they can't fly any planes to shoot at other planes. Like,
for Iranians to shoot down the airplanes. Does that make sense? When you pass
also talk about being wrong on this one. Jesus. Where did our how many B-2s did we lose in the mountains when we went to bomb?
planes have to drop ammunition, food into the country. But again, Iran is all mountains. So it's very easy for Iranians to shoot down the airplanes. Does that make sense? When you pass through mountains, you can't see what's on the ground.
It's what?
A random guy with a rocket launcher can just shoot down the helicopter, okay?
What? We lost a whole squadron of F-35s. What happened, sir? The goddamn man pads. Is that what they call them? What do they call they got them. They got them, sir, from the ground on the camelbacks. The camel riders with the recoilless rocket launcher. They got all of our F-35s.
Which is what the Afghans did against the Soviets in the Afghanistan war.
In the 70s? When was the Afghan Civil War? What is it? How is it even remotely 80s? This started earlier, didn't it? Wait. It was 70s, right? For the Afghanistan conflict, when the Soviets were trying to keep their dude there, and the Afghan people were like, no, we were. By the way, if you don't know, this is where we sent in the CIA to go and train Osama bin Laden from birth to be a anti-American murderer. They made a documentary on it. It's called Salt.
And that's why the Soviets lost the war. A drone can take down any airplane.
The Soviets lost the war because rocket launchers against helicopters.
The rocket launcher can just shoot down the helicopter, okay? Which is what the Afghans did against the Soviets in the Afghanistan war. And that's why the Soviets lost the war. A drone can take down any airplanes, okay? So, in other words...
I'm getting trolled! I am getting trolled! This is a troll! I'm getting trolled right now! This is the guy that's he's going to be on Joe Rogan. You want some geopolitics predictions? Within 1 year, within 6 months, this guy will be on Joe Rogan. He will be on Lex Friedman, and he will be on Piers Morgan in one-on-one interview on a debate. There's my geopolitics predictions. If it hasn't happened yet, 6 months, and he will be on those 3 shows. Okay, there you go. Flip it.
These guys are trapped. You think they're soldiers, but they're not.
Stop. There are no camels in Iran. No camels in Iran. What are you talking? Next, you're going to tell me what? There aren't any Arabs in Iran either? What do you mean, bro?
What they really are hostages, okay? In other words, these guys are trapped. You think they're soldiers, but they're not. What they really are hostages, okay?
What? Can somebody make I want an AI movie of the airplanes are flying and it's what's ahead? We can't see. There's mountains everywhere. And then the shoulder-mounted rocket launchers. Don't worry, we're dropping in how many troops do we drop in? 500,000. Only 500,000 paratroopers? Sir, we need at least 4 million. It's a population of 90 million people and everyone has a gun. Did we get any supplies in? We can't, sir. With the supply airdrops are all getting shot down and coming through the mountains. There's no goddamn roads into Iran. It's impossible. They have no port access anywhere in the entire country. It's impossible to get anything in. There are mountains everywhere. We're encircled. We're trapped, sir. There's enemies all around us. Oh, enemies? What kind of enemies? The mountains.
Does that make sense? You have too many people in the country, so you can't get them out of the country, but you don't have enough people to actually launch a strike against Tehran. You can't resupply them. And they've been encircled by Iranian forces.
Which are the mountains.
All right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay? Okay. Now, the logic of having 100,000 US troops in the country is that once in the country, all the resistance to the regime will rise up and strike against Tehran. The Iranian army will mutiny against the country. Okay? That's the hope. Why do we think this won't happen?
Because when you get attacked by an enemy, you want to fight the enemy.
Why won't the Iranians revolt against their government?
Oh, because remember, teachers, it's like a test. You got to go back to the beginning of class. Some of you said it's probably relevant. You're saying, well, because the Americans already did regime change with the Shah in the 50s and they didn't like that. So they're going to resist it this time. That's got to be the answer. I'm a great test taker. I have the 190 IQ when it comes to taking tests, okay? That's got to be the answer. Come on, teacher.
Why don't they want to revolt?
Come on. I'm going to come.
That's right. Okay, so Iranians hate Americans, okay? Remember that Iranians remember the Shah.
I'm the master test taker, bro. Give me a test at any subject. If the test is long enough, I will figure out the later answers from the beginning ones, okay? You always start at the back. I start reading all the questions, okay?
From 1953 until 1979, the Shah, the American-supported Shah, was running a brutal police state. So brutal that everyone in Iran revolted against the regime. Okay, that's number one. Why else would everyone, the Shah, the American-supported Shah, was running a brutal police state, so brutal that everyone in Iran
I don't know if it was quite that unified, but okay.
revolted against the regime. Okay, that's number one. Why else would the Iranians not support the Americans?
What's the other reason? Okay, we got that. Did he give another reason? Because they might lose. They would be trapped, encircled by the mountains as well. Israel. AIPAC. Israel. AIPAC Jews. Israel, AIPAC Jews. Israel, AIPAC Jews.
Why?
Israel. Because Israel would be part of
That's the first reason.
Israel.
Iran has a bad history with America.
And
Why
Israel.
else?
Maybe Saudi Arabia. But Israel and Saudi Arabia. Israel. AIPAC Jews. But also maybe Saudi Arabia. Come on.
Guys, which country is next door? What happened in Iraq? America destroyed Iraq, right? From 2003 into 2011, America was there destroying the country. America said that it would bring freedom, democracy. It would bring prosperity. It would bring wealth. But instead, it just destroyed the country.
We need to look up what's going on in Iraq these days. I truly have no idea. Is it actually? I truly have no idea. I don't know.
American soldiers were running into houses every night, pointing guns at children, destroying homes, and arresting men for no reason, okay? Iranians saw all this on TV.
They were probably cheering.
They heard about all this from neighbors, okay? So they know that.
What I feel like I read stories about this, the Maliki guy, the guy that we first put there, was like traumatized from the Iraq-Iran war. And like, we're like, all right, we banned. Bush came in and he said, no more. If you were in government before, or any part of the country at all, you're not allowed to be there again, okay? Bad boss, spank, okay? And then the whole new Iraqi government was like, okay, well, we were a whole bunch of people with no experience now because you banned all the other people from ever being a government. And they got this dude, the Maliki guy, and he was like, all right, it's day one. What are you going to do? I'm going to drive as many things as I can over to Iran because I know that the U.S. is going to cover me because they just fucked this whole country up, and I'm going to go and harass Iran at the border. And I'm pretty sure he did this like immediately. And I think we got him to chill eventually. But I think this guy's early life, he was like traumatized in some Iraq, Iran, or some Sunni Shia bullshit. I don't remember. I have to go look it up. But I think the first dude was initially unhinged. But I think Iraq and Iran from that war, at least onwards, hated each other for at least a little bit. I don't know. They're modern. I don't know enough about these countries yet.
That if America comes, it's just
wrong. Destiny. Maliki is the most pro-Iran party. Not party. The first. I don't know if he was president or prime minister. No.
Destroy the country, not to bring freedom, democracy, not to bring prosperity. It's to destroy the country.
True.
That's why they're going to fight.
True.
Okay. And another reason is that Iranians think that they belong to a great civilization, so they value their freedom and independence. Okay, does that make sense? They're not going to submit to a foreign conqueror. So, why else would the Iranians resist?
They don't want to be a puppet state. Oh, Saudi.
Also, religion, right?
Oh, yes.
The Iranians are religious.
Wait. For the Drake meme, is there like a sound effect with that, or is it just a GIF? I need like an oh. I need like an oh sound effect. I don't have any of that. Like oh shit.
Believe that America is Satan, and they have a duty, a religious obligation to fight Satan. Okay, so for many reasons, there's just no way that Iranian people are going to stand with America. You might have a minority, but most are going to resist.
Okay.
Okay.
Especially the mountains.
Okay. So does that make sense? Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. So that's a great question. Why would the Americans think that the Iranian people will rise up? And the answer is that they need to justify the invasion. Okay? Does that make sense? They have to have a logical explanation for why this invasion will succeed. Because one of the criticisms against them will be like, you need 4 million people to invade Iran. They don't have 4 million soldiers. They have at most 1 million soldiers, okay, total throughout the world.
The whole world.
They have about 60,000 in the Middle East. So they can't get 1 million soldiers. So the only explanation is, okay, well, we're going to pretend that once we invade, the people of Iran will support us. You understand? Mm-hmm. So it's not based on truth, but it's a explanation for why the invasion will succeed. Does that make sense? Oh, that's a great question. Okay.
What was the question?
That's their propaganda. Yeah. But do they actually believe this? And the answer is...
the answer is hubris. They're retarded. And Israel. Hubris and the Jews.
Okay.
AKA Jubris.
They do believe this.
That's when the Jews make you so arrogant, they gas you up and make you think you can do anything just to further their interests.
Because they have hubris. And again,
Jews.
It's hard because we're not in a position. But once you're in that position where you have access to nuclear weapons, when you can kill anyone in the world, when you can see everything in the world.
What do people claim this guy predicted? This video got 1.3 million views. I'm pretty sure they got this like in literally the past 2 weeks. People say he predicted the entirety of the current conflict because at one point in this video, he says we'll be at war with Iran, and then we bombed Iran. Go figure. So now people are like, this guy's an actual Nostradamus, bro. Nostradamus. He fucking predicted everything. In the last 30 days, this channel picked up 326,000 subscribers. His channel has 343,000 subscribers.
World. It makes you think you're God, okay? And we remember, like, last semester we were reading the Greeks, and the Greeks believe the worst thing is hubris. Because it makes you think you're God, but you're not God. And you're going to get into a lot of trouble if you think you're God, okay? Does that make sense? Okay, all right, any more questions?
Why is there like one person in this guy's class? Is it his wife? His mom?
Okay, so Trump says that Iran is 1 month from developing a nuclear bomb, right? America's been saying this for the past 10 years, okay? You just Google this, and America's like, oh, Iran is only 1 month away from a nuclear bomb. They've been saying this for the past 10 years.
Okay.
So do you understand? When Trump gives a speech, there's absolutely no evidence that any of this is true, okay? But this is how he'll explain the invasion, okay? All right? And chances are that even if Tehran possess a nuclear bomb, they won't use it. Why not?
Because if they nuke someone, then they'll get nuked. Oh, second guy.
That's right. The reality is that there's only one way that America can win this war against Iran, okay?
And that's if the people rise up.
Just nuke the country.
Oh.
And America...
Okay. Oh, my bad. Yeah.
Base?
Okay, we'll do that. If it has enough, if it has a pretext, okay?
Well, nuke? Why we're going to nuke them?
Is that there's only one way that America can win this war against Iran, okay? They can just nuke the country. And America will do that. If it has enough, if it has a pretext, okay?
Okay.
So nuclear weapons is something that Iran is very afraid of, okay? So does it make sense? All right. So
okay.
This becomes, so American soldiers are trapped in this country, okay?
Yeah.
So now the question then is, wait a minute.
How do we get out? What do we do?
Here. Why would America do something so stupid as send 100,000?
Jess, please, hold on. Okay, I'm edged. I need to get like a splooge cannon. Please, God, bring in APAC and the Jews here. Please, God, you can do it. Please, 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 you can do it. I know you can do it. Please, please.
Soldiers
Balls are so blue right now. Please.
into the country for no reason and get them trapped.
Because,
Okay? So that's the question. And what I want to do now is make you the argument that there are
or is it so we have an excuse to nuke them?
two ways that we can
Nuke them.
prove or provide evidence that this is true, okay? The first is
never.
historical analysis. Historical analysis means that are there historical examples like this, okay? Are there historical analogs? If there are, then this could be true, okay? The second method is through game theory analysis.
Okay.
Why would the actors who are rational do something as stupid as trap 100,000 American soldiers in Iran? All right? So we'll first do historical analysis.
Okay, well, historically, it's identical to Vietnam. Everything. You know that one quote? Everything is about sex except sex. Sex is about power. Everything in geopolitics is about Iraq, except Iraq. That's about Vietnam. Did you know that?
Define historical analogs, examples that are similar to this. And then we'll look at game theory to try to reason out the motivation of the actors.
Okay.
Okay? So let's first look at game theory. Oh, sorry. Let's first look at historical analysis. Okay. So the year is 415 BCE, okay? In Athens.
Okay, my bad. Fuck me. I fucked up.
Remember that we studied Thucydides, the Peloponnesian War, last semester, okay? So we will now discuss the Peloponnesian War. The year is 415 BCE.
Hold on, I'm retarded. Did that war actually happen, or is this like one that was dramatically over-exaggerated from older writings, the Odyssey or the Iliad or whatever? That was a real war that happened, right? It did. Okay.
And for the past 17 years, Athens have been fighting a brutal war against Sparta, okay? It's a stalemate.
If I had to answer yes to his question, does this make sense? So he could stop talking to me? I would stop LOL. Excuse me, bro. Be appreciative.
And then for whatever reason, a man named Alcibiades, okay, has a suggestion. Okay, and his suggestion is to win the war against Sparta, let's go invade Sicily. And Nicias, his opponent, is like, why the hell would we want to invade Sicily? It's far away. And Alcibiades is like, well, because it has a lot of money. And if we invade the country, we can take their money. Okay? And it turned out...
Oh, this is like in Game of Thrones when Olenna sends all of the forces to the Lannister place, but then the Lannister army goes to the one place and they beat them
making this argument, the people of Athens really support
Highgarden.
Okay, because the reason why is war was
Casterly
costing
Rock,
a lot
whatever,
of money,
yeah.
and they become addicted to the easy money of empire. Okay, so they want to fight this war. So Nicias has this great idea of how to convince people not to go to war. Okay, and what he says to the people is, okay, guys, I know you want to fight this war. I know that you think this war is a good idea, but Sicily is a huge place. It has a navy. Therefore, we need a massive expedition force against Syracuse and Sicily, okay? We need at least 5,000 soldiers. That's a lot, okay? Because the total Athenian population is about 50,000 people, okay? 5,000 soldiers is a lot for Athens. And we need about 100 ships. And the idea is Nicias is trying to scare people into not agreeing to not fight, okay? That's the idea.
Okay.
The Athenians say, that's a great idea. Let's send a massive force against Sicily and Syracuse so the war can be won just like that, okay? Shock and awe. So the problem, though, is that never before in its history has Athens sent a large expedition force against another power. Okay? Does that make sense? When the Persians invaded, they were invading Athens. Athens didn't go invade Persia. So when you send a massive expedition force against another country, what is your number one problem? What is the thing that you must resolve? But the Athenians didn't really think about it because they had absolutely no experience in fighting a foreign war. Okay, so the enemy knows the terrain better than you do, okay?
Yeah.
But there's actually a much bigger problem than that.
Okay.
And it is what?
What?
Okay, the biggest problem is resupply. And this is something that the Athenians didn't think about because they never thought a war like this before, okay? So they sent this huge expedition against Sicily. And Syracuse, which was a naval power, were surprised because they were like, why would the Athenians want to invade us? Okay, so for the first year, the Athenians were destroying the Syracuse army. And the Syracuse army had to retreat back into their city, okay? And so the Athenians laid siege to the city. Okay, the Athenians, Syracuse is here, the Athenians are here. And the Athenians control the sea, right? Okay? So this situation is very similar to this situation, okay? Do you understand? But then what happened was that the Athenians couldn't resupply themselves. And the reason why is Syracuse had also had a navy, and they could stop the Athenian navy from resupplying the Athenian troops. And therefore, the Athenian army was wiped out in Sicily. And this caused the Athenians to ultimately lose the war against Sparta, and it caused the Athenian empire to collapse.
Okay.
Okay? Do you understand? And again, historians have been trying to figure out for a long time why the Athenians would do such a stupid thing as to send a huge army against Syracuse. Because the risk of failure was catastrophic. Okay? And the only answer is, well, the Athenians had hubris. Okay? They never really lost the war, and they had become addicted to empire, which is the same situation America finds itself in today. Okay? Does that make sense, guys? All right? So this has happened before in history.
Okay.
When the Athenians invaded Sicily and lost to Syracuse. Their entire army was wiped out in Syracuse. Okay? Because they couldn't resupply their army. Does that make sense? All right. The second example we can look at is the Vietnam War.
Yes! Okay, we got there. Half come.
So in the beginning of 1960, okay, the beginning of the decade, most Americans have never heard of a country called Vietnam. Okay? Most Americans didn't know what it was, didn't know where it was, okay? By the end of the decade, in 1969, 500,000 American soldiers were in the country, destroying everything, okay? But also getting destroyed themselves. 58,000 US soldiers died in Vietnam. So the question then is, how did this happen? Why would this happen? 1960, Vietnam was a distant country no one's ever heard of. By the end of the decade, 500,000 US soldiers were in country fighting this war against an enemy they really didn't know. Okay? In 1971, the Pentagon Papers came out.
Oh my God.
And the Pentagon Papers was a history of America's involvement in the Vietnam War dating back to the 1950s, okay?
Okay.
And it made three major points. The first point is that American leadership, military leadership, has been expanding the war in Vietnam without public knowledge, okay? This is what we call mission creep. So maybe at first, they sent some observers to the country, then they sent some advisors and trainers, then soldiers, okay? So mission creep. Slowly over time, things escalate. And you don't really understand why things escalate, but they do, okay?
Is that the definition of mission creep? I don't know if things escalating is considered mission creep. I thought mission creep is when you are in an area and then your objectives start to evolve over time, not necessarily because of an escalating situation, but just because you're taking on more and more shit. So for instance, I think mission creep was a huge criticism of Iraq and Afghanistan because we toppled the leader, But then we decided afterwards, like, let's rebuild the whole country. That was like a big mission creep, like that objective. Like, it was obvious that the country needed help afterwards, but we didn't even, it just didn't seem to be something planned for, like goalpost shifting. If you get involved in a war and then the war is escalating, I don't know if I would say that mission creep, but okay.
Second point is that American leadership from very early on knew the war was unwinnable.
Why? Really? I haven't read the Pentagon Papers for Vietnam or whatever, but
this was the greatest military in the world. They dropped more bombs in Vietnam in the 60s than all bombs were dropped in World War II, okay? And they could not win the war. And the reason why is, to win a war, you have to solve 3 problems, okay? The first problem is
kill all the bad guys.
Clear strategy, okay?
Oh.
What are you trying to accomplish in this country? What are your clear military objectives, okay?
That's to avoid mission creep.
Second is you must adapt to the battlefield, okay? Because all your best plans will change over the course of a battle, okay?
Okay, this guy is just making shit up. There's no way that there's like there's no textbook on this shit where it's like, these are the 3 things that you have to keep. This is like, there's no way. I don't believe this. Through all of our military analysis, there's 3 things that all of your soldiers need if you hope to win a battle. The first is high morale. It's important that your troops are in good spirits. The second thing you need is a good supply of rubber for tires. And the third thing that you need are good retirement benefits so that people join your military and they're willing to do their full contract and retire afterwards. He's just like picking random things. There's no shot that in any type of fucking textbook or widespread analysis, like, what's the important thing? Well,
military objectives, okay?
Adaptability is important. What?
Okay. Second is you must
remember to provide your soldiers with fire pits.
Adapt to the battlefield, okay? Because all your best plans will change over the course of the battle, okay? So the adversary that is most willing to adapt to the battlefield will win, okay? The third thing is the will to fight. So
what are these?
Well, if you want to look at a war,
like, these aren't like, none of these are wrong. It's just there's no way these are like the 3 things.
Who's most likely to win the war? You ask these 3 questions. 1, does this guy have clear military objectives that everyone understands? Because that will determine strategy, okay? Second is this guy adapting to the battlefield? And the third is this guy, does this guy still have the will to fight?
Like, I feel like number of artillery shells would trump all 3 of these. So I feel like, does this guy have airplanes and missiles? I feel like that would trump all 3 of these. Or like, is this guy's people starving to death? I feel like would trump all 3 of it. But, you know, does this guy have boats?
If the answer is yes to all 3 questions, then the person will most likely win the war.
What if the answer is yes for both sides?
Okay, and if you look at the Vietnam War, even though America was killing a lot of people, it killed 3 million Vietnamese during the course of the war. It was not destroying the enemy's will to fight. In fact, it was making them angrier. And therefore, more people were willing to fight the Americans. Okay? So very early on, the American political leadership knew the war could not be won. So then the question then is,
because the more you killed them, was it like 28 days later rules or whatever? The angrier they got, the undead would come back.
Why did America stay in the war? And the answer is credibility. Okay? Credibility just means they didn't want to lose face. They didn't want to be laughed at by the Chinese and by the Soviets and by the Europeans, okay?
Wasn't there also like a massive international First World versus Second World Cold War conflict going on where we didn't want to lose influence in other countries? Or is it really just...
But there's actually another way to understand credibility. And it's what we call the sunk
cost fallacy.
Fallacy. Okay? Have you guys...
This is the most random assortment of things on a dry erase board.
Heard of the sunk cost fallacy? And the idea is...
Also, I like how the 3 things that you need to win a war, I feel like they would at least be reflected in like the 3 things that of like military doctrine or whatever, but there's just like no overlap at all. Like,
never ever go into a casino. The reason why fallacy, okay? Have you guys heard of the sunk cost fallacy? And the idea is never ever go into a casino. The reason why is that when you go to a casino and you start losing money, at some point you cannot leave the casino. Why not? Exactly. You want to reclaim the money you've lost, okay? You've invested so much that you cannot leave. You have to get that money back. And that's the problem with war. Eventually, you've invested so much, you cannot leave the war. And that's what happened in Vietnam. America invested so much, it it didn't want to.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you want to get like real pedantic, and I will with this guy at this point, because this is not really the sunk cost fallacy. My understanding of, and I shouldn't even say this, I should just this guy. The sunk cost fallacy has more to do with the idea that time that you spend, okay, the problem with the sunk cost fallacy is when you're trying to evaluate from an investment perspective, okay? Let's say that we invest $100,000 in some asset, okay? Let's say we invest $100,000 in some asset, and let's say that we watch this asset price like do this, okay? And then let's say that there's another asset, and let's say that that other asset price, I want to draw like I was gonna say a derivative, but I don't need to, I guess. Let's say there's another asset that we can invest in that, like, I guess it looks like this. I don't know if this necessarily makes sense, but the sunk cost fallacy is when you're evaluating where your efforts should be spent, technically, assuming there's not tax, whatever bullshit, anybody that well actually is me here is getting, okay, IP banned. When you're evaluating where your money should be spent, the evaluation should always be strictly prospective. Retrospective doesn't really matter, right? Let's say that somebody says, okay, I have $50,000 in my AMD stock and it was worth $100,000. I can't sell now. Like, I can't sell. Bro, I've invested so much money in this. I can't, like, it has to come back. And it's like, well, why not just like put it, like, it's still going down. Why not just put it in something else that you know is going to go up? Bro, 100,000. I have 50,000, right? The question when you're trying to get somebody to figure out, like, are you sunk cost fallacy mindful right now, is take a step back. Let's say that you didn't have $50,000 in AMD right now. And let's say that you had $50,000 in cash. Forget the $100,000 you invested initially. Sell it, have $50,000 in cash. Would you put that same $50,000 into AMD, thinking it'll go to $100,000? Or would you put that $50,000 into something else that you think is more likely to go up? And I was like, obviously it would go immediately into something that's more likely to go up. It's like, okay, that's the sunk cost fallacy. You're using a retrospective analysis to influence your perspective, to influence a decision that you should only be making prospectively, because the prospective outcome has nothing to do with the retrospective loss, right? The markets don't care that you lost half your investment. That's not going to influence the thing going forward. The sunk cost fallacy doesn't really map cleanly onto like a war like this, because if you invest, $10 trillion in some war and it hasn't gone great so far, like, it might be that you got to cut your losses and leave, sure. But it's not like you're like, okay, well, let's imagine that we could just invest in another war right now and let's go do another one. It's not really the same type of thing. Like, sunken cost is not always fallacious, right? There can be a legitimate sunk cost in a thing that makes it worth sticking around in. But when it comes to investments or stuff that you can only evaluate prospectively, that has an independent outcome that's not tied into any retrospective stuff, well, then it's fallacious to assume that going forward you should consider where you came from, right? But for war and conflict, it doesn't really map on like that, I am being nitpicky with this guy now, so fuck this guy.
To lead the war because they did not want to admit that all this has been lost. Okay, it's what we call the sunk cost fallacy. And that's why, even though America could not win the war, it still wanted to fight the war. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so the Vietnam War is another example, okay, that is similar to this, where America invests enough soldiers that it refuses to lead the war and admit defeat. Okay, does that make sense, guys? All right. Now let's look at one more example, and this is the most recent example, and it's the Russian-Ukraine war. Now, as you know, in February 2022,
the U.S.-backed coup. Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry, it was 2014.
Putin ordered a
special military operation, he's going to say.
Special military operation against Ukraine.
Don't do the denazify thing. Don't put that all there. That's too much. Don't do it.
Okay? And this is Ukraine. And Russia attacked from three axes. Okay? The north to take Kiev, the capital. You have the east to take Donetsk. And then you have the south from Crimea to take the south, okay? And as we know, the north failed, okay? The north attack failed and the Russians had to turn back.
Because they didn't have, so did they lack their three things? They didn't adapt to the battlefield, they didn't have the will to fight, and they didn't have cha amigo, or what is this? CG stamp. What was this again? Clear objectives. Oh, okay.
But the east and the south were successful.
He must bring in some of his prior analysis to make sense of this, right? You have to bring up the three things. They have to bring up the three things.
Okay? Now, let's think of this. You have an extremely powerful military attacking your country, the Ukraine.
Oh, or maybe they tried this one instead of this one. They went on the right instead of the left one. You have to bring up some of your prior analysis. He'll do it.
If you were the Ukrainian president, if you were the Ukrainian military, there's really only one way you can fight this war and win. And what is it?
Adapt to your terrain and will to fight.
Using traditional military doctrine. How much you fight this war? You guys know?
Dude, come back here.
Yes! Let's
go.
back to mass forces, avoid encirclement, protect supply lines. How much?
Mass forces, I don't think they had, did they have to, the Ukrainian army have more people ready to mobilize right there? Avoid encirclement, well, I think they failed that immediately, right? Because weren't they getting attacked on all sides? Does that count as being encircled? Not technically.
You fight this war. There's only one way you can fight this war.
Okay.
To me? How do you disrupt supply lines? There's only
How do you disrupt supply?
one way you can fight this war and win.
Grow mountains. Grow mountains. Mountain seeds.
And what is it? The enemy is attacking you, right? So what must you do?
Defend. Attack back. Counterattack.
Okay. The answer is you must retreat.
Oh, it's like a random answer every time. He's like, the answer is you must make sure your soldiers get 8 hours of sleep a night so they're at maximum performance.
Okay? Why? The enemy is attacking, right? So you pull back your forces.
Okay.
Why would you do that?
So that you can adapt to the terrain, it's got to relate to your answers here, right?
What's the logic of that?
Supply lines. Oh, shorter supply lines. Shorter supply lines, sir.
Exactly, okay? It's that simple, okay? You want to overextend your enemy. Ukraine is a huge country,
Yes.
right? And Russia didn't send out that many soldiers, maybe 160,000. That's not that many soldiers. So if you just give them space, they're going to outrun the supply lines, okay? And then when they outrun their supply lines, you can encircle them and you can disrupt their supply.
Yes.
And that's the only way you can win the war, okay?
Did they encircle the Russian supply lines in the beginning? I thought the Russians overextended and their tires fell off because they were old and...
What did the Ukrainians do instead? That's the only way to win this war. But what did the Ukrainians do instead, which made them lose the war?
Retards. What did they do? They didn't adapt to their terrain. They didn't encircle them.
So the Ukrainians refused to give up space, okay? They refused to give up land. They want to fight the Russians for every inch of territory.
Weren't there Russian tanks in Kyiv on like day 2? Am I making that up? I thought I saw videos of...
And eventually, because the Russians had more forces, mass forces, they were able to push through, okay? So that's the first major mistake that Ukraine made.
Idiots.
But then last summer, Ukraine launched something called a
Don't you know the first thing you have to do is give up all of your territory?
counteroffensive, right?
And then you can fight with your reinforced...
So once Russia was able to take space, because Russia is a land army, it started to develop fortifications, defenses, okay? Mainly artillery. And that's 3 lines of defenses. And in the summer offensive, the Ukrainian military, for whatever reason, sent tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of soldiers against this artillery, and the Russians blew everyone up, okay?
Duh.
Now, here's the question. Why are the Ukrainians doing this? They've lost the war now, right? They have no more soldiers. Right now, the average age of the Ukrainian army is about...
It was like 49 years old.
It's over 40 years old. They have guys from their 60s and 70s fighting in the military.
Front lines, but you didn't know that, did you?
They don't have enough...
Now he's making fun of it, but frontline soldier, okay, huge rucksack, carrying multiple M249s. You can't have a normal soldier do that. You can have a dude in an electric wheelchair doing that. That guy is a actual literal battle tank. Plus, one of the things that's beneficial to these guys on the front lines is before you send them out there, you chop your legs off. And then that's like 20% of the calories that this guy would consume per day. You don't have to feed him as much. More compact for trenches, smaller targets for enemy soldiers.
Manpower. The war's lost. Why?
Easier for medics to pick up and carry them off. Or for some of the frontline Ukrainian soldiers, what they would do for a lot of the handicapped dudes that are fighting in their 60s and 70s, they just swap them out and they stick them in one of these bad boys.
Make sure to...
This one.
Japan is truly living in the 2050s. They've invented...
Wait.
Japan is truly
Ukraine.
living in the 2050s. They've invented this automatic wheelchair that takes you and your luggage to your gate with just a few taps. No more walking for miles.
They have this in U.S. airports now, by the way, and in the Ukrainian front lines to bring back the 70-year-olds.
Why would the Ukrainians do this? First of all, why would they fight for every inch of territory? And why would they launch a counteroffensive against a superior enemy? What's the problem? Okay, the first...
They're trying to do this one. They're trying to do the fight on the right instead of the left.
First is the president Zelensky,
It's corrupt and hubris.
the guy's a TV actor,
True.
okay? Which means that he doesn't
Hubris.
think strategy. He just thinks what looks good on TV.
True. Fucking true.
So for the first 2 years of the war, we're watching this on TV, right? And it looked as though the Ukrainians were going to win this war.
Yeah, and remember the first 2 years when it looked like for 2 years they were going to win? I remember that.
Right? I remember like 2 years ago, people were saying that the Ukrainians are going to march to Moscow and overthrow Putin. People were saying that, okay? And the reason why is that Zelensky is a
He's on TV. He's an actor. He makes it look good. But he's not actually winning the war. He just looks like he is.
master of public image manipulation, okay? He was distorting reality for people through television. The problem with that, though, is it's not reality, guys, okay?
Yeah.
The reality on the ground is very different from TV, okay? So who else is like Zelensky
Donald Trump.
in this world? Trump is exactly like Zelensky, okay? Do you understand?
And because Trump is like Zelensky, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Oh, I didn't see her there. Oh, I'm sorry. I just stepped on this cat. I'm sorry. I haven't. Well, rip. Gee, man. Because Trump is like Zelensky, that's why we're going to get stuck in Iran. Holy shit.
Understand? Trump is also concerned about what looks good on TV. He's like, I must look strong. We must look as though we're winning this war. He doesn't really care about strategy, okay? So because of this, it's very likely that he orders a land invasion of Iran because it would look good on TV,
Yes, I got it. But he's not thinking strategy.
okay? So the problem with Zelensky is he cared about what looked good as opposed to actually what actually worked, okay? But you also have other problems, like you have extremists.
Okay.
But the Russians don't understand Nazis that way because remember, Germany and the Soviet Union fought this war. So the Russians understood Nazis to be enemies of Russia who want to kill Russians.
Oh. And that's going to make the Russians fight even harder.
And there were many neo-Nazis in Ukraine. They hate Russia. They want to kill as many Russians as possible.
As many as possible. True.
And they're the ones who are pushing for as much war
And controlling Zelensky.
as possible. Okay? So you have these extremists in the Ukrainian military. Okay? Now, the last reason is NATO. So it's an open secret that NATO is helping
Why does he say it like that?
NATO, Ukrainian military. Okay? Now, the last reason is NATO. So it's an
NATO. He sounds like XQC saying, why does he sound like this?
Cheeto.
Why does he sound like this?
Okay? Now, okay, so you have these extremists in the Ukrainian military. Okay? Now, the last reason is NATO. So it's an open secret that NATO is helping the Ukrainian military against Russia.
It's an open secret? Did we just publicly announce all of this was going to happen? How is that a secret? What part of this is secretive? What does he mean by help?
You have NATO military advisors devising strategy against Russia. Okay, so it's most likely that the summer offensive last summer was a NATO plan and not a Ukrainian plan. It's possible.
Oh,
We also know that NATO special
oh my God. Oh, hold on. I'm about to triple come. Please, God. Hold on. I'm about to triple. Hold on. Please, God. Say that NATO special forces, that's not really. NATO special forces blew up the Nord Stream 2. Oh my God. I will actually come canon on stream. I will come on stream 100% if he says NATO blew up Nord Stream 2. He's not going to say that though. He's gone somewhere totally different though. And I'm totally wrong.
forces are in the country directing missile strikes against Russian forces, okay?
Okay, never mind. God damn it.
Which means what? If this is true, and if
I don't know what that means. NATO special forces are directing missile strikes against Russian targets. I don't know how true that is, but okay.
Ukraine loses the war, meaning that it doesn't have enough soldiers to continue to fight this war, what will NATO do?
Nuke Russia.
Yeah. I mean, according to what happened to Vietnam War and
The ground invasion.
Expedition against Sicily, it is most likely that the most likely outcome will be that NATO sends its own troops against Russia.
Oh, what the Kill me. I want to kill me. This guy is the master predictor.
Okay, so Macron or France have said that we want to send French soldiers, and the British Prime Minister has said that he's considering conscription for British people.
Yeah, to send them to Ukraine? Okay. True.
Which means that
Yes.
young British citizens will be
dying for America in Iran. Or, whoops, I mean in Ukraine for NATO.
drafted into the army to fight Russia. All right?
That's a goddamn
So
crime.
these are 3 historical examples that are very similar to what could happen in Iran. Okay, does that make sense, guys?
What? That's he just cited a historical example that hasn't happened? Are you allowed to do that? Allow me to cite the historical example of a hypothetical scenario that absolutely could never come true and absolutely will not come true. But
All right, any questions?
and our historical examples were Vietnam, the Peloponnesian War, and I guess in the other multi-universes timeline where Britain conscripted soldiers to go and fight in Ukraine.
Questions before I continue.
No questions, sir.
All right, is this clear so far? All right, now let's use another mode of analysis called game theory analysis, okay? This is what I've been teaching you
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
this semester. And the idea is that society, what happens in the real world, is a game among human beings, okay? And each person is trying to play this game as to optimize the outcome for that person,
Yes.
okay? So the question then is, why would the United States send 100,000 troops into Iran? So let's look at the individual motivations of the individual players, okay?
Oh my God. This is my longest 2-hour long edge. If we can get back to APAC and Israel. Hi, baby. I'm so sorry. I will never step on you again. Ugh, this guy's gonna hate me. Whatever. It just keeps walking in and out of the room. It's the kind of schizophrenia.
So you have the United States. What does the United States want to do?
Help the Jews and Israel. Help Israel. Help Israel. Help Israel. Please say it.
What does it want to do?
Please say it. Please say it.
By doing what?
Israel.
And accomplishing what?
You
It
guys-
wants to topple the regime in Tehran, right?
Okay.
And you can only do that through a ground invasion, okay?
Yeah, true.
So the United States is trying to topple Iran.
Okay.
But then you also have other actors.
Oh, we're getting there. It's coming. It's coming. Oh, ho, ho. Hold up. What did this man say?
Topple the regime in Tehran, right? And you can only do that through a ground invasion, okay?
What did he say?
So the United States is trying to topple Iran. But then you also have other actors, okay? So Iran. What does Iran want to do?
No.
What does Iran want to do? Or basically the Revolutionary Guard Corps. What do they want to do? Right? They want to kill as many Americans as possible, okay? Do you understand? They want to force an American land invasion, okay? So Iran wants to force a U.S. invasion, knowing that if the U.S. invades, it has to lose the war, okay? It will lose the war.
Okay.
Because the Revolutionary Guard can just send suicide bombers against the United States, okay?
What? Not the suicide bombers? No, the U.S. Army could never. Well, to be fair, we are trapped and encircled by mountains with no supplies, and all of our F-35s getting blown up with rocket launchers from Camelback and scimitars thrown at our drones. Oh, and our planes getting shot down by drones.
Now let's look at Israel.
Yeah!
Okay? We know that the United States wants to topple Iran. We know that Iran wants to force a U.S. invasion to defeat
So that
the Americans, to humiliate the Americans, and exact revenge
He's
for what
getting it.
happened in the past. Okay?
And-
what does Israel want to do? What is Israel's optimal outcome? You guys know?
how optimal could it be? Let's think for a moment. Iran toppled.
If you're Israel,
The United States mired down in an
what do
extended
you want
war.
to happen?
I want the U.S. at war forever with Iran. Yes. I want Israel. I want America.
Okay,
Long
so
war.
you want Iran defeated, okay?
Yes.
And then what do you want to happen? You want Iran defeated, you want the proxies defeated, and then what do you want to happen?
Regime change. Regime change. With U.S.
Do you want
population.
the United States to stay in the Middle East?
Yes. Like Iraq, right?
What happens if the United States? What happens if the United States and Iran both lose the war? I mean, Iran is destroyed as a country. The United States is destroyed as a military presence in the Middle East. What would happen?
Then the U.S. can't protect Israel anymore. Israel get destroyed.
Israel becomes the top dog in the Middle East. Do you understand?
Oh, never mind. I'm sorry. We went into. That's even harder. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Israel can now control the entire Middle
Oh.
East. So the outcome for Israel is
Is they destroy
Iran
each
and the United
other.
States are both destroyed. Okay.
Yes.
You understand?
That's why they want to take us in.
Saudi Arabia. What is their optimal outcome?
Israel gets nuked.
Exactly the same as Israel. Exactly. Okay. Do you understand?
Yes. Holy.
Okay.
Oh, never mind. Sorry.
Which will leave the Middle East to Saudi Arabia and Israel. But Israel is a far superior military than Saudi Arabia. Okay. Remember, it's very easy to blow up Saudi Arabia. They have oil fields. Okay.
This guy's be trolling. This can't be real. This is not a real person. This is AI. Stop. This is not real. This cannot be a real person. This is an AI. It is being, this guy's gonna be a Lex Friedman in 30 days. This guy might have already shot his Lex Friedman episode. This can't be a real person. There are so many great sound clips from this. What is this?
Okay? Which will leave the Middle East to Saudi Arabia and Israel, but Israel is a far superior military than Saudi Arabia. Okay? Remember, it's very easy to blow up Saudi Arabia. They have oil fields. Okay, not that easy to blow up Israel. So Israel becomes a top
because they have nothing.
dog. You understand game theory? In other words, all the major participants want an invasion of Iran. Okay, but they want different outcomes. And Saudi Arabia and Israel most benefit if this situation happens, where you have 100,000 U.S. troops in the country and they can't get out, okay? Because it becomes...
I want to do this. I feel like I could do like a whole... I should pick like Asia or something as well. And then like I get like 30 minutes to browse the first paragraph of every Wikipedia of every country in Asia in the past like 50 years of war and then tie it all together. In Asia, there are 3 things that determine who wins. 1 is who has the coolest looking armor. 2 is who has been nuked the least by the United States. And 3 is how many people you killed with communism.
Sunk cost fallacy. The United States can only pour in more soldiers. Okay, does that make sense?
Well, but not too many, right? Because if we poured in 3 or 4 million soldiers, that's enough to win, right? That's like the key number.
All right, so is this clear to you guys? Okay, you can either use historical analysis to get to this outcome, but you can also use game theory to get to this outcome. Any questions so far? Okay, great, okay. So Celine asked the most pivotal question, okay?
Oh, what? How do we don't go to war? How do we avoid?
The United States has nuclear weapons, which is its ultimate trump card, right?
Okay.
So what Trump can say to Tehran is like, I have 100,000 troops in country. You have to let them go or I will nuke you. Okay.
The U.S. instantly adopts first strike doctrine, which I think was the reason why we didn't want... I think there's only 2 countries like that, right? Is it Pakistan or is it India and France? I might be making that up. France does everything kind of on their own. I think that's why France wanted nuclear weapons, because we were like, we only nuke people if they nuke us. We want the whole world to be mutually assured destruction. And France was like, whoa, we might nuke you first. And France might be the only country that does that. I don't know if India or Pakistan do, but France is just its own thing, and they're cool, all right?
Okay?
Okay.
You understand? Trump can say that. Listen, I'm Trump. I'm Donald Trump.
I can just nuke whoever.
I need to look strong. I have 100,000 troops in the country. I can't get them out of the country. So he says to Tehran, you either let them go, okay? You either guarantee him safe passage out of the country, or I will nuke you, right? So that's what will happen. That is what Donald Trump will do. Once the situation arises, the only way for Donald Trump to save face is to threaten Tehran and says, you either let my guys go, or I will nuke the entire country, right?
The whole goddamn thing.
So how does Tehran get out of this situation?
By nuking Israel. By letting them out?
How do the Iranians protect themselves against this possibility? Because you're absolutely right. This is exactly what will happen if this situation will arise. Trump will respond with nuclear weapons.
By moving all of their people over to Saudi Arabia. By bringing the Houthi pirates to shoot down the nuclear missiles.
With a threat of nuclear weapons. So what must the Iranians
by threatening to bomb Saudi Arabia and blowing the whole country up and all their oil fields
do to protect themselves against this possibility? Who can help the Iranians now?
Who can help them? Israel, Saudi Arabia, China,
Russia. Okay, do you understand?
Fuck, Russia. God damn it. They're already friends. They're already allies. What do you mean?
So before this war happens,
and that's World War III.
Iran and Russia must come to an agreement where Putin says from the onset.
Wow, Iran and Russia must come to an agreement where they like each other and are friendly with each other? No shot. That would never happen. Could it possibly?
No one is allowed to use nuclear weapons. Okay? If Iran uses nuclear weapons, I will nuke Iran. If the United States
Wait, what?
use nuclear weapons, I will nuke the United States. If Israel uses nuclear weapons, I will nuke Israel. Okay? If Putin says that, how will the world react?
I don't know. France will nuke Russia.
If Putin says this, you are not allowed to use nuclear weapons, how will the world react?
They'll nuke
He's a hero,
Turkey.
Right? He saved humanity.
Oh.
But because he says this, the United States is now trapped. Okay?
Oh.
You understand? And so this becomes a black hole for the United States, where they can only send in more troops. They can't get any troops out. They can only send in more troops. What's the problem with this?
It's sunken cost fallacy.
Sending in more troops.
Sunken cost fallacy. We're not adapting to the terrain. mission creep and no will to fight. And hubris.
No, there's actually a huge problem with this idea of sending more troops. What is it?
The Houthis will blow up all of our ships with their pirate ships.
Okay, you can't, like, no one wants to go fight. You understand?
Oh, will to fight!
The military cannot recruit soldiers.
Oh, that too.
All right?
Oh, so we have to draft conscription?
But even if you did have enough troops, as Jack says, you can't resupply them. Why?
Because of the mountains.
Why can't you actually resupply your army? Why not?
Mountains.
But there's a bigger problem than the supply lines. What is it? What do you need to create bullets and ammunition?
Stuff from China.
America has no manufacturing capacity because America moved all its manufacturing capacity to China. Okay?
Oh my God, World War III.
Okay? Remember this. So for every one ship that America can build,
China can build 100.
China can build 232 ships. That's what the Pentagon says. Okay, do you understand? So if this war were to happen,
We're fucked.
there's absolutely no way America can win this war.
We're completely...
It's trapped inside Iran.
We'll just be airdropping more and more troops in, watching them getting murdered by mountains as the camel riders shoot down our F-35s with RPGs.
Trapped.
It's fucking over.
Cost fallacy comes into play in America.
Sunk cost fallacy, hubris, no will to fight, not adapting to the terrain. We should have bulldozed the mountains first.
Just puts in all its resources into the country, but it's a black hole. Okay?
Yep.
They cannot use nuclear weapons because Putin has said from the onset, you are not allowed to use nuclear weapons.
Exactly.
All right? But another question then is, why would Putin do that? Right?
Because now Putin is the hero and all of Europe will stop fighting back and Ukraine will join Russia with honor.
Putin involve himself in this war. And that's
Legitimacy.
what we'll discuss next class.
Oh, God.
All right? How Putin sees this war and how Putin will react in this war. Okay? But before we end, are there any questions about any of this? Does this make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
This is clear. Any questions?
For Iran to Iraq.
Is it possible for the United States to make it around through Iraq?
Oh, that's a great
To send arms from Iraq? Excuse me, sir. There are mountains there, you fucking idiot. Hello?
question. Yeah.
It's not a good question.
So
Call him a
the
dipshit.
problem with Iraq is that Iraq is an independent country. Do you understand? There are 10,000 American soldiers in Iraq.
What about the mountains?
So you would need their permission. Even if you had
Do you think that would be difficult to get?
permission, there's a problem here because there are lots of Shia militiamen in Iraq who are loyal to Iran. Okay, and they would see the American invasion force as an opportunity to attack the Americans. Okay, because they're still angry about the Americans for what happened in Iraq. But even if they could
Hello? Whose phone is just going off?
have a staging area in Iraq, they still have to deal with mountains. Okay, do you understand?
There we go.
All right?
The mountains.
I mean, the problem is you have 100,000 troops in the country. You have to get
they're trapped.
out of the country. Okay, and it's very hard to get them out of the country. If you go through the mountains, you're gonna get an ambush in the mountains.
Yeah, if you go through the mountains, they basically lit half of Iran's population. They're mountain men.
If you go for the air, those drones are gonna strike you down.
You can't go through the air. How are they going to go through the air? I got to get out of here. Can't do this because the drones will get you. This guy would die 100%, right? How fast is this plane? What is the minimum speed of this plane to be in the air? To go from 0 to I feel like he would get picked up and he would instantaneously just be squished in his suit and he would die. It's like I'm sure people brought this up. The meme of if Superman swoops in front of somebody to fly and save them, wouldn't they just die as soon as Superman picks them up?
That's the issue. Okay, all right. Does that make sense? Okay,
Yeah, we got it.
Any more questions?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, great. So on Friday we'll talk about Putin. Okay.
We literally do this IRL in the military. I thought this was a theoretical military thing that never actually they didn't end up implementing this, did they? To retrieve both personnel and downed assault gliders following airborne operations. Snatch pickup did not use a balloon, but a line stretched between a set of poles set on the ground on either side of the person or glider to be retrieved. Interrupt usually a C-47 Skytrain trailed a grappling hook that engaged the line, which was attached to the antenna cargo. Oh, maybe they did. God damn it. Stop.
So we don't actually have okay.
The German will to power.
Go to Japan, go on the subway. No one is struggling against each other, okay? No one's pushing. Everyone, even though it's crowded, people are standing exactly where they should be standing perfectly. That is the idea of synchronicity. If your people can do that, they can fight a war and win the war, okay? So this idea of unity of will, all right?
Does synchronicity mean that? I always thought that was some fucking mumbo jumbo concept of like things in the universe happen for a reason. Maybe it means something else as well, I guess. I don't know.
They can set
Also, wait, why wasn't synchronicity part of the 3 things you needed to win before? Did he expand the list? Are there 4 things or 5 things now?
in line for a long, long time. All right. All right. So we're going to look at some speeches from Hitler, from Hitler, okay? And we're going to see from his speeches, he's trying to create unity of will. He's trying to be the Ubermensch, the Superman who will unite his people like Napoleon and carry them to victory through faith in themselves, okay? The unity of will. If men wish to live, then they are forced to kill others. The entire struggle for survival is a conquest of the means of existence, which in turn results in elimination of others from the same sources of subsistence. As long as there are peoples on this earth, there will be nations against nations, and they will be forced to protect their vital rights in the same way as the individual is forced to protect his rights. One is either the hammer or the anvil. We confess that it is our purpose to prepare the German people again for the role of the hammer, okay? So he's saying we must unite as a people. We must have unity of will if we are to triumph against our enemies.
Okay.
All right. Nothing is possible unless one will commands, a will which has to be obeyed by others, beginning at the top and ending only at the very bottom. This is the expression of an authoritarian state, not of a weak, babbling democracy, of an authoritarian state where everyone is proud to obey because he knows I will likewise be obeyed when I must take command.
Okay.
Right? Hitler is not being a dictator. He is trying to create unity of will. He is the leader. He's the Ubermensch, but that's only because God demanded him to be so. He must be obeyed.
Hold on. Did I misunderstand this quote? Nothing is possible unless one will commands. A will which has to be obeyed by others, beginning at the top and ending only at the very bottom. This is the expression of an authoritarian state, not of a weak, babbling democracy, of an authoritarian state where everyone is proud to obey because he knows I will likewise be obeyed when I must take command. What?
When I must take command, all right? Hitler is not being a dictator. He is trying to create unity of will. He is the leader. He's the Ubermensch, but that's only because God demanded him to be so. Okay?
I thought Ubermensch was like master race, or am I making that up? Oh, fuck. Oh, dude, I got too much in my brain now. I just need to play video games.
Übermensch.
Übermensch is a concept in the philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche. In his 1883 book, Thus Spoke Superman, Nietzsche has a character, blah, 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 in English. Okay. The German prefix Über can have connotations of superiority, transcendence, excessiveness, or intensity, depending on the words to which it is attached. Mensch refers to a human being, not a male specifically, as it is sometimes erroneously believed. The adjective übermenschlich means superhuman, beyond human strength, or out of proportion to humanity. Based.
Okay? He will unite the German people into a hurricane, into an ocean to crash itself upon the world. In the course of my life, I have very often been a prophet, and I have usually been ridiculed for it. During the time of my struggle for power, it was in the first instance the Jewish race which only received my prophecies with laughter when I said that I would one day take over the leadership of the state, and with it, that of the whole nation.
Not authoritarian, though.
And that I would then, among many other things, settle the Jewish problem. Their laughter was uproarious, but I think that for some time now they have been laughing on the other side of their face.
Ooh.
Today I will once more be a prophet. The international Jewish financiers in and outside Europe should succeed in plunging the nations once more into a world war, then the result will not be the Bolshevization of the earth and thus the victory of Jewry, but the annihilation of the Jewish race in Europe, okay?
Yes.
So we don't actually have any concrete evidence for the Holocaust, okay? So one piece of evidence for the Holocaust is this speech.
What?
By Hitler. But I want to explain what he is saying here. Okay? What he's saying is
Best quick summary of Nietzsche. Nietzsche, the best quick summary of every philosopher in that time period is, man, I sure do wish any of these fucking assholes that are trying to get these nations together to kill each other would actually read my books instead of just reading bits and pieces of them and co-opting them for their own crazy thoughts.
Base?
is we, the German nation, want to be left alone. We want to be united. We want to be unified.
Wait, what? What is this guy saying? What is this? This guy is going to be on Joe Rogan. He will be. This is the next Dave's. I wonder if Dave Smith has ever quoted this guy.
Of the Jewish race in Europe, okay? So we don't actually have any concrete evidence for the Holocaust, okay? So one piece of evidence for the Holocaust is this speech by Hitler. But I want to explain what he is saying here, okay? What he's saying is,
tell us.
We, the German nation, want to be left alone. We want to be united. We want to be unified. But the capitalists and the communists all seek to undermine us. And who are the communists? And who are the capitalists? The Jews.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
It's the Jews who are a metaphor for a national elite group of individuals who are conspiring to undermine the vitality and the strength of the German nation. All right? So that's what he's saying here.
Okay.
All right. 1939, September 1st, is the beginning of World War II, okay?
Okay.
And so he's going to explain why this is happening. As a National Socialist and as a German soldier, I entered upon the struggle with a stout heart. My whole life has been nothing but one struggle for my people, for its restoration, and for Germany. There was only one watchword for that struggle, faith in this people, one word I've never learned, that is surrender, okay? So he's telling the people, we're going to fight this war again. Why did we lose World War I? Because we didn't have faith. We surrendered. If we all came together and we fought to the very bitter end, we would have prevailed against our enemies, okay? It is quite unimportant whether we ourselves live, but it's essential that our people shall live, that Germany...
To be clear, his interpretation is nothing. It's not correct at all, right? Like, nothing that he's talking about has anything to do with the text on the screen. Like, I don't know what it, like, as a National Socialist and as a German soldier, I enter upon this struggle with a stout heart. My whole life's been nothing but one long struggle for my people, for its restoration. Right? He's talking about I'm guessing the pan-German nation, the idea of the reunification of the Bismarckian Empire under a strong leader where Germany grows and encompasses all Germanic peoples and everything. Like, the idea that all of his like interpretations of the text on the screen are just like random thoughts that he has. Like, what was this? What did he say? This is, was this the one where it's like, this is the evidence for the Holocaust? Like, no, it's what? No, there's just like random excerpts from speeches that he's giving. Why, like, with his own unique interpretation on board that oftentimes has little to nothing to do with the text.
have made. If we form a community closely bounded, but it's essential that our peace, okay?
Okay.
It is quite unimportant whether we ourselves live, but it's essential that our people shall live, that Germany shall live. The sacrifice that is demanded of us is not greater than the sacrifice that many generations have made. If we form a community closely bound together by vows, ready for anything, resolved never to surrender, then our will master every hardship and difficulty, okay? It is the unity of will that matters. All right. 1942.
Let me finish the quote.
It's the unity
You
of...
can put the whole thing on the screen. We form a community closely bound together by vows, ready for anything, resolved never to surrender, then our will master every hardship and difficulty. And I would like to close with the declaration that I once made when I began the struggle for power in the Reich. I then said, if our will is so strong that no hardship and suffering can subdue it, then our will and our German might shall prevail. This even supports his will interpretation. Why not read that part?
Resolved never to surrender, and our will master every hardship and difficulty, okay? It is the unity of will that matters. All right. 1942, November 8th. It's basically at a time in history when the Germans understand they've lost the war. The Americans are now in the war. The Americans are getting ready to invade Europe. The German invasion of the Soviet Union has failed, okay? They're bogged down in the Soviet Union. Germany is overstretched. The entire world has allied itself against Germany, okay?
I'm so sorry. Hold on, wait. I just need to check some dates here. The U.S.'s first formal insertion into mainland Europe was the Normandy, right? In 44? Okay. We'd already been, by 42, Pearl Harbor that was 41, right? Pearl Harbor, African theater, we don't talk about that in the USA. No one cares. Pearl Harbor was 41, right? December 7, yeah, okay. What was the big, what was the huge, when Germany was like pretty fucking, Russia. What was the battle? Was it Stalingrad, or am I making this up? Sometimes I feel like I'm saying names of places from Metal Gear Solid 3 instead. Okay. Stalingrad battle, World War II. Battle Stalingrad was from mid 42 to 43. Okay, so they were getting fucked hard at this point. Okay. So
the war is about to be lost. But let's look at what Hitler has to say.
Okay.
It is with the same conviction that I now stand before you and has never left me either since the day on which, as an unknown man in the city, I began to struggle first for the soul of the German people and then on beyond the city for more and more followers. In the beginning, I did not have much more to give than faith, the faith that if anyone pursues a just aim, I will with unchanging and undisturbed loyalty and never lets himself be diverted from it, but puts everything into it, then others will be found who are determined to be his followers, and that from this whole and ever stronger faith must gradually radiate to the whole people. Okay, so this is unity of will.
So this is the most random.
We reject reality. Reality does not matter because we impose our will on reality. As long as we have faith, as long as we have unity of will, we will triumph, okay?
Okay.
All right, so let's go back to the beginning.
Okay.
We're talking about Kaliningrad, right?
The beginning.
It is one of the greatest injustices in human history that Königsberg, which was
Part of,
for the longest time,
I don't know, German something?
the cradle of human civilization, the epicenter of the Enlightenment, it is now completely destroyed. Okay?
Damn.
But, and this is an idea from Wagner, okay?
Okay.
By destroying this, the world has cursed itself. Okay?
Wow. True.
Let me explain why.
Tell us.
First of all, the German question now is more relevant than ever before. You've destroyed Königsberg, but you have not destroyed the desire for unity among the German people. Okay? So this is the memory that will not fade. Okay? So will the Germans seek vengeance? Will another Hitler arise to unite the German people? Now, what you guys don't know is that the Prussians were one of the main forces opposing Hitler as well as inhibiting Hitler. Okay? Because Prussia had a very proud culture and it's very the strongest part of Germany. But now that they destroyed Prussia, if another Hitler arises, there's really nothing to stop him. Okay? That's the first problem. Second question is, okay, let's go back to this map. Europe and Russia are about to go to war with each other, right?
Okay.
Okay. Well, if you are Europe and you go into Ukraine, you're going to be slaughtered, okay?
Okay.
But this is Kaliningrad, Russian territory, 500,000 Russians, right? You can blockade Kaliningrad.
Okay.
You understand?
Okay.
So this could be the start of World War III right here.
Oh, another World War III entry point. Holy shit.
Does that make sense to you guys?
Jesus.
So the Europeans blockade Kaliningrad and they try to starve the people. Putin would have no choice but to intervene.
Yeah.
Okay? But the main problem is this. Königsberg was one of the main intellectual, scientific, and cultural centers of Europe. That its loss reduced the innovative potential of humanity. All right? So what I will show you in next class when we discuss Kant is...
What? Oh, I don't know enough philosophy to enjoy that one as much as I should be able to. Oh my God. Does he do every single topic? Does he know everything? He's a polymath. Somebody was linking, apparently this guy is just a high school teacher? Is that from 2008 to 2010, Mr. Zhuiken Zhang built and managed a study abroad program at Shenzhen Middle School in Shenzhen, China, to promote the ideas of creativity, collaboration, and critical thinking skills in China. From 2010 to 2012, he built and managed the international division at Peking University High School in Beijing, China, to promote the ideas of global citizenship and service learning in China. April 2014, he published the book Creative China in China, about his experiences working in the Chinese public school system. And he's currently the deputy principal of Tsinghua University High School in Beijing, China. What? Sorry.
All right. So what I will show you in next class when we discuss Kant is science comes from philosophy. Okay?
Philosophy. What does it mean? Like all the early sciences technically were like the philosophy of like balls, sex, and the philosophy of vision. I think they all branched off. That's technically true.
Culture leads to philosophy, which leads to science, which leads to technology. You cannot have science independent of philosophy. When you destroy a center of philosophical innovation, you destroy a center for scientific progress. Okay? So this is something that we will discuss in depth next class as well. So when we look at Kant. So that is Germany. Okay, any questions about what we've learned so far? Was this clear to you guys? Okay.
Anybody have any questions about anything? So you said a thing about that we didn't have any edit. No, never mind. No questions.
Any
Nobody's going to ask about that. That's just
questions? To me?
How can Hitler be grown like that?
How can Hitler be grown? How can Hitler be
Excuse me?
How can Hitler be grown like that?
Yeah, okay.
personal
So,
charisma?
where did Hitler come from, right? How did Hitler become so charismatic? Okay. So this
I think we know the answer to this. Was it immediately after World War I? He was sent to go do. I don't remember. He was sent to go study some military study or help with some people over some bullshit. And I think apparently he dramatically improved on his rhetoric. 1919, I think, maybe. I don't know why I'm saying it like this guy's about to shed some light on that, but let's see what he says.
randomness to life, okay?
Okay, base. True.
Where did Hitler
It was fucking random. This guy would be the ultimate debate. Just so you know, okay, because I know they're fans of me and you guys think highly of me. If I debated this guy, I would get destroyed, okay? This guy would just obliterate me on every single fucking level, okay? Through every single fucking discipline, everywhere.
come from, right? How did Hitler become so charismatic? Okay. So there's a lot of randomness to life, okay? There's a lot of like randomness going on in life.
And he rolled high in charisma.
So the army wanted to inhibit the growth of the socialist left-wing movement.
Oh, holy shit. Wait, he might actually give the right answer.
And it did so by financing these right-wing parties. The Nazi Party was just one of many parties that the army financed and supported, okay?
Oh, never mind.
Hitler became a spy and he became part of this movement. And as such, he became exposed to a lot of the ideas of the Nazi Party. The Nazi Party, a lot of the ideas come from Nietzsche and Wagner and others as well. Okay.
Hold on. When did the Nazi Party formally get? I don't think that's true at all. Wasn't Hitler doing a bunch of shit and then eventually I don't even remember what the name of their was beforehand. They did take a lot of inspiration from philosophers or whatever, but supposedly they brutally like reworked parts of philosophy. That was the joke I made about Nietzsche earlier, is they'll take like bits and pieces from philosophers and try to make it sound. But they also did the same thing with the history of the German Empire as well. And I think they glorified and made up a lot of shit about Bismarck, that dude.
And over time, Hitler came to believe that he was the Messiah. Okay? He was the Messiah dedicated to restoring German unity.
Based.
Okay. And
Well, no, that's not based, sorry.
I mean, like, this is hard to understand, but human population is very diverse.
Okay.
So you always have a subset of people who have these delusions of grandeur. And if in certain circumstances, they will be proven right. Okay? That doesn't make sense. Okay? So another way of saying this is the army needed someone to play the part of the Ubermensch, the Superman, who could unite the German people and create national unity so that the army could seek its vengeance against the rest of Europe and unite the German people.
Like, this is trying to make it sound like there was some dude behind Hitler or the military. Like, I'm pretty sure the formal collection of the I forgot all the names, bro. It's been too long. Was it the what the fuck am I thinking of? The name of the thing that fell to give rise to the Third Reich. The name of the oh my god. Tell me. The name of the empire, the name of the Weimar Republic. Thank you. Jesus fuck. He's making it sound like the Weimar Republic was like secretly trying to fund Hitler to create some dude to bring the to bring the army. I don't believe any of that is true. None of that is.
Seek its vengeance against the rest of Europe and unite the German people. Okay, so they're looking for this role, and then Hitler auditioned for this role, and he got the role. Okay, does that make sense? And this is important because towards the end of the class, we'll discuss Donald Trump. And what I will show you is this is exactly what happened with Donald Trump. Okay, so the the American military needs an Ubermensch to lead America to war against Putin. And there were different people who auditioned. Biden auditioned, he was terrible. Harris auditioned, he was terrible. And they picked Donald Trump. Okay, so it's a very similar pattern. It's a very familiar pattern in human history. You can also argue that Napoleon was the same way. Okay, and what makes these people different from us. Napoleon, Hitler, Julius Caesar, Trump they are the total expression of the Zion will. You understand? They have absolutely no compassion, no sympathy for anyone. They believe they are here on a divine mission. They are complete. They are the will itself. And they must impose their will on others to save the world. Does that make sense? So look at Donald Trump, okay? If you want to understand Hitler, look at Donald Trump. The guy's like almost 80. He doesn't sleep, okay? He's off traveling around the world all the time. The guy in his, when he was campaigning, he was giving like 3 speeches a day, right? He would get up in the morning at 4 o'clock, fly somewhere, give us 2-hour speech. People loved him. Then he would get on the plane, fly somewhere else. And he could not stop talking to reporters, okay? He has tremendous energy that comes from the perfect expression of the will. You understand? Donald Trump is all will, all desire, all ego, and no sympathy, no empathy, no compassion. That's Hitler and Napoleon.
When they want their citizen or their people think they are like too relentless with violence.
Yeah, that's a great question. So won't people rebel against us? Won't people think this is reckless? And so what Schopenhauer and Nietzsche and others will say is,
he knows every single thing in history. He knows all of it.
What, first and foremost, is a return to unity of will, right? In the very beginning, the will was God. That's the Big Bang. And then the will expanded itself, right? And so we find ourselves alone in an ocean of alienation. And what our hearts really aspire to is return to a unity of will. And so when someone says, you can be part of a movement to transform the world, that's much more appealing to us psychologically than to say, oh, you know what? Come to school, do your homework, get good grades, do the SAT, get into a top 50 American school, become an accountant, and for 50 years, do something meaningless, but make a lot of money, and then you will die happy person. Like seriously, there's no competition, right? There's no competition. Donald Trump is saying to Americans, we will make America great again. We will be a civilization, a great civilization again. It will require sacrifice. It will require my sacrifice. 2008 is...
Somebody linked me at times. I'm so sorry. Hold on. We're just, the opening on Khan, I just have to hear.
The great financial crisis. Why did it happen? It happened because America had become a gambling economy. And so it happened because America had become a gambling economy.
A gambling economy.
So it had to take money and invest it. The problem, though, is...
What does that even mean? He's a master speaker. He just says things.
And
please give us and the 3 successful things for an economy are a fiat currency, a digital banking system with 2-factor authentication, and the federal holiday system.
So it had to take money and invest it. The problem, though, is there's too much money flowing into America, and there's not enough good investments. So what Wall Street did was it started to invest in really bad investments. It was encouraging people with no money to go and buy like 5 houses, okay?
There's you can see the threads that he's pulling. I was like...
And eventually they would have to default. And when they default, it would create a cascading effect where the entire global economy would collapse. And that's what was the 2008 great financial crisis.
True.
To solve this problem, what America did was print money, okay? Look at this, guys.
True.
Up until the year 1980, America had about $1 trillion in debt. Okay? America was founded in 1776. By the year 1980, about 20 years later...
Is the M1 money supply? M1, M2, I think M3 is kind of theoretical. It doesn't have to do with the types of currency. Oh, God. I'm going to guess and be totally wrong. I've looked it up 3 times. I keep forgetting it. M1 is isn't M1 physical currency? M2 is accounts or whatever. Let's just real quick. I don't remember. Give me M1, also called narrow money, is often synonymous with money supply in reports from the financial media. This is a count of all the notes and coins that are in circulation, whether they're in someone's wallet or a bank teller's drawer, plus other money equivalents that can be converted easily to cash. For example, a regular bank savings account is a money equivalent. The account holder can convert those savings to cash at any time and instantly. The M2 money supply includes the M1 plus short-term time deposits in banks and money market funds. Generally, terms of less than a year are considered short-term. And then M3, MO, and MB, these aren't separately represented, and no one cares about this. What did he say? Is he just saying the M1 money supply is just debt? That's his equivalence here?
Debt. Okay? So what it did was print money, okay? Look at this, guys. Up until the year 1980, America had about $1 trillion in debt.
Well, I mean, like you can just look at Fred, U.S. national debt historical. I don't know why he wouldn't just like use this graph instead. Is he using this graph and he just labeled it wrong? No, I don't think he is.
Okay? America was founded in 1776. By the year 1980, about 20 years later, it had $1 trillion in debt. Today, 1776, America had about $1 trillion in debt. Okay? America was founded in 1776. By the year 1980, about 20 years later, it had $1 trillion in debt. Today, it has now $37 trillion in debt. Okay? This is all money printing.
That's not strictly what that is. I think this is not a graph. This is the numbers. This is where's the 30. All right. Okay. I don't know. Right.
Boom. You see a steep curve going all the way up.
All the way up.
All right. The economy in America right now is really screwed up. The reason why is the stock market is worth twice as much as the real economy.
Well, actually, hold on. That might not be fair. Let me think for a minute. Could you actually measure total U.S. debt with the M1 money supply? Actually, maybe you could. Or no, actually, hold on. Let me think. If there are $100 in circulation in an economy, does that necessarily mean that the U.S. government would have that? No. Oh, someone in the chat said no. I'm sure there's a correlation, especially with quantitative easing and interest rates and all that. I'm sure it's correlated. I don't think it's strictly the same thing, but
Economy. Okay, that makes no sense at all.
U.S. equity market cap to GDP ratio at all-time high.
The total value of the U.S. economy is half of that of the stock market. Okay, so this shows you that right now America is living in a fantasy. It's a make-believe economy.
So just to be clear, the GDP is not the total amount of like capitalization of the entire United States. The GDP is like what would be the, will this be equivalent to like the revenue sheet of a business maybe? GDP is just how much you're producing. That's not accounting for all of your assets. Your market capitalization is theoretically the total. Actually, that's not even really your assets. That's just the valuation of the company, right? I don't know why you would ever necessarily compare these two numbers ever, but
the other problem is this massive wealth inequality. Okay.
Okay.
So as you can see, the wealthy people are pretty wealthy, but by 2000. But 1980, the time of Reagan, it shoots all the way up. Okay, so you have this massive wealth inequality being created in the United States.
Wait, what was that graph? What were we even looking at? Is he going to explain? Did he make this? What? Wait, what are we looking at? Something shot up. Top 0.01% U.S. income share, including capital gains. Okay, so this is the share of income, including capital gains, of the top 0.01% in the United States. Okay. And the S&P deflated by the
But 1980, the time of Reagan, it shoots all the way up, okay? So you have this massive wealth inequality being...
Okay. It would have been nice if he would have like explained what this was, but that's okay. We don't need it.
Created in the United States.
Okay. But for the very wealthy, the story is completely different. Their after-tax incomes have risen much faster than GDP. I like how some of these graphs are like he pulled like data from Fred and made his own, and then others are coming from some paper, I guess, and then this is coming from some website.
This also shows you...
I'm sorry, I don't know why that was funny.
...how wealthy the top 0.001% are relative to everyone else, okay? So the main beneficiaries of all these reforms of this financiation has been the ultra wealthy in America.
Okay. When you use a whole bunch of sources like this, it's called synchronicity also.
At the same time, if you're an average American, all you've seen is your debt go up, okay?
Okay.
Your debt has gone way up. So you can make the argument that the system is designed to exploit the middle class by forcing them into debt so as to enrich the wealthy's investments, okay?
Wow.
That's the American system. And in fact, you can argue the global system. So in 2008, the global economy collapses.
Okay.
So what happens, okay, and I believe this is what happened. I don't think this is conspiracy theory. The central bank...
Oh, shit. He said that there's no evidence for the Holocaust, and he didn't even qualify that with that. Now, we're about to get some crazy shit. Okay, here we go. Okay.
what happens, okay, and I believe this is what happened. I don't think this is a conspiracy theory.
Okay.
The central banks basically encouraged the Chinese central bank to start printing money, right?
Okay.
And this is important because when you start printing money and you invest in real estate, you need resources. You need to buy resources from Australia, from Brazil. And this is what saves the global economy. And this all looks very impressive, guys.
What is
and this is what saves the
what even is this a picture of? Is he pulling up like random time guesser? I don't know what this is.
global economy. And this all looks very impressive, guys. Like,
Okay.
I know when you go outside and you see all these big buildings and fancy
It does look pretty impressive.
railways, it's all very impressive. But remember, okay, this is really important.
Okay.
Behind the veneer of this prosperity are three things.
What? Oh. Adaptability to terrain, will to fight, and supply lines.
Massive debt, right?
Oh.
Because this money is being printed. So someone has to pay this off. You guys, not the current people, but you guys or your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren, okay? But someone has to pay off this debt. That's number one. Number two is this has created massive inequality in China, right? So the rich are filthy rich and the poor aren't that much better off. And the third problem that's really important is it's created a lot of political corruption,
Okay.
all right? So behind all this veneer are corruption, inequality, and debt. And this is what, okay? So a really important,
This is the best. This might be the best YouTube channel I've ever seen in my life.
lesson for you guys to understand the Chinese relationship with America is this. There's this very, very famous quote by Charles Baudelaire who said, "The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist."
Okay.
Well, I'm going to paraphrase him. Okay. And this is what I think is the relationship between America and China. The greatest trick America played was convincing China it could be rich.
Wow. Deep.
All right. This is no different from 1985, the Plastic Accords, when America basically encouraged the Japanese to increase the value of their yen, which led to economic collapse. Well, but when the Americans encouraged the Chinese to print money in about 2008 and about 2015, it basically created conditions for China's economic collapse. Okay. All right. This is what led to the rise of this man, our dear fearless leader. Okay.
She.
I believe his intentions
Are good. Thank
I
you.
think he wants to save
He does want to save China, and he's very good. He just is a little misguided or doesn't understand some things.
China from this global financial capitalist system.
Yes.
He needs to maintain China's independence and sovereignty. And he's fighting very hard to save the Chinese nation.
Oh, but he's fighting against America.
Okay, that's what I believe.
America's against him.
And so you can make the argument that what's happening today in China is no different from the Opium Wars. Remember, Britain created an opium epidemic in China in order to enslave the Chinese economy to the global financial system, right? That was the Opium Wars. Well, the same is happening today.
Basically like the CIA in Harlem with crack cocaine, except
Where the Americans have basically created a Chinese dependency on US dollars, right? What's the Chinese dream? The Chinese dream is work hard, get into a good school,
and go to America.
get rich, move your money and your children to the United States.
Yes.
That's the Chinese dream,
King.
all right? And if that's a dream, then eventually the civilization won't last very long. Am I wrong? Is that not the Chinese dream? All right. So now you have the COVID.
What is he teaching in China? He's in China, right? And all these kids are like speaking decent, fluent English, or maybe that's really common for Beijing students in high school. I don't know, maybe I guess.
Crisis where China's locked down for 3 years. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, okay? But you can make the argument that some of this was intentional in order to implode the Chinese economy. Why?
what'd you
Because
say?
I'm not a conspiracy theorist where China's locked down for 3 years.
Okay.
Now, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, okay? But you can make the argument that some of this was intentional in order to implode the Chinese economy. Why? Because the Chinese economy had become a system of transferring wealth from China to the United States. So by imploding the economy, you're stopping this drainage, okay?
Okay.
All right. This also led to the rise of this man, Vladimir Putin,
Okay.
who is very much like Joseph Stalin. He understands the grand picture. He understands strategy, grand strategy. He understands that now it's time to strike. Why? Because America has created this crazy, fantastical system, right? Where there's a hierarchy of prices. In the American system, the Pax Americana, resources are the least valuable, okay? The basis are the resources, right?
Okay.
Which is what Russia has a lot of. Up next in this pyramid is manufacturing, which is what China does.
Okay.
Then up next is
service.
knowledge economy.
Oh, fuck.
So professionals.
Okay.
And that's what Europe and America does really well, okay?
Okay.
And at the very top of this pyramid are the financiers, finance. And that's what Wall Street dominates.
You
okay?
know, you
so
know.
this is the pyramid.
You
of the
know,
world that we
you
live in.
know.
What Putin said is this. What Putin said is, you know what? If I can control the world's resources, the oil, the food, so then I can invert this pyramid so that resource at the top. And that's why Russia invaded Ukraine. Because if Russia were able to dominate Ukraine, Russia
He couldn't even make it through that. What?
and Ukraine together would control one third of the world's carbohydrates. Without Russian food, Africa and the Middle East would both starve to death.
Excuse me, as a man from Nebraska, okay, I feel like we could grow a lot of carbohydrates in the United States, and I feel like in other places in the world. Now, not to knock my Ukrainian brothers, okay, the breadbasket of the world. I know they have a lot of farmland there, but I think we can handle it, okay?
Okay? And so that is the rationale for Putin's invasion of Ukraine. He's a genius. He understands
He's trying to take over the wheat fields.
there's fundamental weakness in the American system. Okay? If you're able to control the resources, you are able to strangle this financial system. Okay? So by invading Ukraine, Putin showed
Why does he have this on a slide? It's not even a quote, it's just a thing he's saying. What?
that America is a paper tiger. You are able.
What is this from Arma? Is this a video game or is this a real? I think that's real. It looks real.
So by invading Ukraine, Putin shows that America is a paper tiger. Faith in the USD rests on the aura of the American military's inevitability and invincibility. This now forces the Americans to invade Iran.
Putin showed America is a paper tiger when they invaded Ukraine and they lost.
Okay, does that make
Well, I mean, in the beginning, it was a pretty embarrassing thing.
sense to you guys? The logic here is very simple.
Yes.
Why does Saudi Arabia buy US dollars, even though they know it's not worth anything? Why?
Petrodollar. Oh my God. Are we going to work the petrodollar in here? Please, 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 please. I'm going to come again. I've come so many times. My come cannon is
Why does Japan buy US dollars? What is Germany? The answer is
petro.
they're afraid that if they don't buy US dollars,
The U.S. will invade them or bully them.
America will come invade them.
God damn it.
Okay? They have no choice in the matter. But now that Putin has showed that, actually, you know what? The American military is not as strong as you think it is. The American military now has no choice but to prove it is as strong as people believe. It needs to restore faith in the military in order to restore faith in the US dollar. Okay, does that make sense? That's why
That's why they did the hurricanes into Nepal and Bangladesh. I think these are mountains, right?
the military has no choice in the matter but to invade Iran.
Oh,
Okay? Because if they're able to invade
Why is this the map that he brought up for Iran? He could have found a more zoomed in map.
Iran, they're able to control the entire flow of Middle East oil. Also,
If they control Iran, they control all of that.
they're able to control
Oh, it's a Chinese-centric map. Oh, like we do in the U.S., kind of. Makes sense. Okay, this is the only map.
active trade throughout the world, okay? Iran is really the center of the world in terms of global trade. So these two factors mean that America needs to eventually invade Iran.
Okay. What does that say there? Oh, I think they're Chinese characters. Never mind. Just curious.
Factors mean that America needs to eventually invade Iran. All right, once it invades Iran, it creates a huge problem for China and Japan.
Wait. Are these AI answers? There's this is a Google answer for AI. That's the link, right? Oh, bro. Oh, kill me. It's okay. All right, go ahead.
Japan and South Korea. Why?
Why?
Because guess what?
Tell
These
me.
three nations get most of this oil
From the Middle East?
right?
Holy shit.
Japan imports roughly 89% of its oil from the Middle East. And guess what, guys?
What?
Japan is the largest buyer of US dollars.
Holy shit.
Japan ever says, you know what, screw this, we're not buying US dollars, the American economy goes bankrupt. So when you invade Iran, you control the oil supply, you control the entire Japanese economy.
Oh my
You can
God.
charge whatever price you want for oil. All right, this explains the Israel-Palestine conflict. Because America
What? Yes.
just can't go invade Iran for no reason. It needs
What is this? This is an AI image, right? What is this?
a pretext. The perfect pretext. America just can't go invade Iran for no reason. It needs a pretext.
Okay.
The perfect pretext is Israel comes to conflict with Iran. Iran attacks Israel. The United States must now defend Israel because Israel is its ally. Right? Does that make sense?
Oh.
So America needs a scapegoat. That scapegoat is Israel.
Okay.
That explains why there's so much conflict right now in the Middle East.
Gotcha.
Look at this map, okay?
Okay, wait. What do you think they're labeling? What do we think they're labeling here? American troops. Brew. Okay, let's go.
This is Iran. It's surrounded by American bases. You have 14,000 troops in Afghanistan. You've got like thousands more over here, okay?
Do we still have that many in Afghanistan? Wait, U.S. base, Afghanistan. I thought we kind of, I thought we left. I thought I saw videos of us leaving that place. I don't think we had 15,000 troops when Trump left after his first term. I'm pretty sure we only had like 5,000 left. How old is this map? Okay, based. Let's go.
Iran is surrounded. It seems to me that America's been preparing to invade Iran for the past 20 years.
Okay.
It's just looking for the perfect opportunity.
Oh, 20 years through multiple U.S. presidencies and everything. Okay.
All right. Problem, though, is that
Oh, shit. We didn't consider.
Iran is not an adversary that America can defeat. The reason why is the geography of Iran.
Remember the three things? Oh, thank God. Now our other history lesson's going to help us here, guys.
Yes.
You remember the Peloponnesian War, right?
In 2003, America went to Iraq and destroyed Iraq. Why? Iraq's a desert. It's flat plains. America has bombs. It has fighter planes, right? It's pretty easy to destroy a desert. But Iran is all mountains. These fighter planes do no good against mountains. You can't
You can't fucking fly through a fucking mountain, idiot.
bomb a mountain into submission.
Does he think they all live in caves? Does he think is like Tehran like a like a cave society?
Okay? So if America were to invade Iran,
I'm sorry.
there's very little chance that America would win this war.
Also, I feel like it's a little bit awkward to be talking about how we can't bomb mountains when we literally just bombed like some of the deepest mountain bases ever.
In fact, it may be the end of the American empire.
Oh, no!
And Putin has a plan, okay? Putin is a genius. He knows exactly what will happen. So Putin is preparing for this possible invasion of Iran.
Okay.
So this is a really important picture.
Yes.
Putin signed an agreement with Kim Jong-un. The agreement is something called a mutual defense pact.
Okay.
Which means that if North Korea is ever attacked, Putin will come to his aid.
Thank God.
All right? Now, why would Putin do this? This is really strange. The answer is this. The answer is, if America attacks Iran, he needs to throw America off balance by creating a conflict somewhere else. The best place to create a conflict would be Southeast Asia, right? Now, you would think, wait a minute here. Putin and China are best friends. If America invades Iran, then China may invade Taiwan. But
You mean China would invade China?
I already told you this.
Careful.
China is dependent on the American economy. So I do not believe this will happen. Okay, and Putin is fairly certain this won't happen either. That's why he's now best friends with Kim Jong-un.
Oh.
Because Kim Jong-un, if he were to menace South Korea, that would throw the American military off balance. Because now there is war on three fronts: Ukraine, North Korea, and Iran. Okay, that's the grand strategy of Putin. This is his trump card.
Okay.
Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Now,
What
I'm saying here is this. I'm saying, like, I know there's a lot of conflict now between China and America.
Okay.
There's a trade war going on.
Yeah.
But I think this will pass. I think there'll be a rapprochement between China and America because both economies are dependent on each other.
Okay.
Right? So I think this friendship between Putin and China won't last very long. There's also really a lot of geopolitical reasons why this friendship won't last very long, right? Because China and Russia have a lot of geopolitical conflicts, right? They share a border. They're trying to vie for influence in in Central Asia. There's lots of reasons why, in the long term, China and Russia will eventually have to break apart, which means that Putin now sees his best friend could be Germany. Okay, this I think are going to be the two big geopolitical surprises in the next 5 years. First of all, America and China will become best friends, or not best friends, but they'll have a rapprochement. And then Germany and Russia will have a rapprochement. Okay. All right. So,
Hey, at least he's not using an AI picture. Okay.
Donald Trump, President of the United States, he wants a third term. Okay. He's creating everything he's doing right now is because he wants to be king of the United States. He wants a third term. Okay, for a variety of reasons. Okay, I won't go into many reasons. Okay, but he's that narcissistic. He has to solve a problem. This problem is the national debt, right?
Okay.
It's now $37 trillion. You can't pay this off. You can never pay this off.
Yeah.
But the theory is like, as long as you are the greatest military in the world, as long as you can go invade everyone, you don't have to pay this off. You can constantly increase this debt. Okay, that's the theory. This explains the U.S.-China trade war.
Oh, okay. This actually makes a lot of sense.
Everything that we're seeing today is because Donald Trump needs to come to an agreement with China for a variety of reasons. Okay, the first reason is Trump wants to invade Iran, and so he needs to be on good terms with China. Okay? Another reason is he needs people to buy US dollars, right? And right now there's a lot of financial repression in China, meaning that you can't convert Chinese currency into US currency. American investors aren't allowed to come to China and buy up the Chinese financial system. Trump wants China to open up.
This man just broke down world history and predicted the future in an hour. He ended the series just as Israel bombed Iran. This is crazy. This one lecture provides more relevant information than 80 hours of cable and mainstream news. I wish it need not have happened in my time, said Frodo. So do I, said Gandalf. And so do all who live to see such times. But this is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. 2 weeks ago, this channel had less than 5,000 subscribers. Now it is over 250,000. Now it is over 340,000. Wow. The comparison between ancient Athens and modern America, especially in how both preach democracy and freedom while simultaneously ruling with mafia-like tactics, is mind-blowing. History really does repeat itself. This channel has been one of these hidden gems on YouTube. Great lectures with very interesting takes and predictions. Hope to see more.
Trump needs to create more interdependency between China and the United States.
Newton's divine plan. Where is the video on? Oh my God, he's got a theory of everything? Holy shit. All right.
To Immanuel Kant and Friedrich Hegel. So my main argument is that Kant is really taking the main thesis of Dante, which is the imagination is the animating force of the universe, and love is the unifying force of the universe. And what he will do is he will use his epistemology. Epistemology just means theory of knowledge. How do we know what we know?
Is that a German word? Or does this mean epistemology? Or is he saying that and I'm just misunderstanding and I'm just not hearing him? Never mind.
And he will use...
Sorry, my bad.
And then he will do three things. He will clarify it.
Okay.
So if you read Dante, it's not very explicit what he...
I'm not gonna, I haven't formally studied any philosophy, so I don't know how wrong he's gonna be on any of this. So I can't enjoy this as much. I'm just gonna be brainwashed.
He's saying you have to interpret him properly. And what Kant will do is make Dante explicit to the world. Then he will rationalize it. Rationalize it just means that he will remove divinity, he will remove theology from it and create a system of logic, okay? And so then he will systemize it. All right, so this is the mission of Kant, to take the secret of the universe as first presented in Dante and then create a system of logic that then is able to incorporate itself into science and history and philosophy in the world that we know. All right, so together,
Dante is in Dante's Divine Comedy? Wait, did that dude do philosophy? Did Kant just build on Dante? There must have been other people writing before Kant that were more relevant, no? Or I don't know.
And Kant really did create the world that we live in today. All right, so let's first talk about the background. Like, why is Kant engaged in this project? So for most of Western history, there have been two major philosophers. They are Plato
and Aristotle.
and
The guys.
Aristotle.
Yes, and Einstein.
And up until the point And up until Kant, you could divide all philosophy into these two major camps. Plato believes that God is called the form of the good. So the form of the good, it is this perfect, immaculate, eternal force that emanates, breathes, thinks. And then he creates something called the ideals. And these are the perfect conceptions of beauty, reason, justice. And then these ideals give rise to the forms, okay? And these are the perfect encapsulation of these ideals. So think of the perfect horse, or the perfect chair, or the perfect square.
Wasn't a fan of that. Watched your Ethan versus Sun video. Loved every second. I cannot stand Hassan. Welcome, Jeffersonian. We define ourselves by our hatred of Hassan here.
Okay?
That's literally all we talk about. And we might even be late, actually. We're supposed to be in another Hassan hate for 5 minutes.
Completing the actions required by clause I through.
This is the real world, okay? This is what is true and real.
Okay.
We live in the shadow world. So remember back to the allegory of the cave. So everything in the shadow world is only an imitation of the forms.
Okay.
And so in this conception, what is good is to move towards the form of the good, to return to the form of the good. And what is evil is to move away from the form of the good. Okay, that's why for Plato, art, poetry is evil, because you're imitating imitation. And why for Plato, mathematics and philosophy are inherently good.
Did Plato really believe art was evil? Plato, art, evil. Plato's aesthetics. There's no way of reading all this, but we can read the intro. If aesthetics is the philosophical inquiry into beauty or another aesthetic value, and art, then, or another aesthetic beauty and art, then the strike. Wait, what? I don't understand this. Sorry. If aesthetics is the philosophical inquiry into beauty or another aesthetic value and art, then the striking feature of Plato's dialogues is that he devotes as much time as he does to both topics and yet treats them oppositely. Art, mostly as represented by poetry, is closer to a greatest danger than any other phenomenon Plato speaks of. Beauty is close to a greatest good. Can there be such a thing as Plato's aesthetics that contains both positions? Strictly speaking, the phrase Plato's aesthetics is anachronistic, given that this idea of philosophy only came to be identified in the last 2 centuries. But even those who take aesthetics more broadly and permit the term will still find something exploratory in Plato's treatments of art and beauty. He might be best described as seeking to discover the vocabulary and issues of aesthetics. For this reason, Plato's readers will not come upon a single aesthetic theory in the dialogues. For the same reason, they are uniquely situated to watch core concepts of aesthetics being defined: beauty, imitation, inspiration. There is something more to be said about the label aesthetics that is important about Plato. One normally speaks of aesthetics or philosophy of art when the theory covers more than a single art form. For understandable reasons, the Platonic dialogues focus on poetry with special energy directed toward dramatic poetry. Tragedy and comedy were culturally dominant art forms during Socrates' lifetime and much of Plato's. Innovative, memorable, and now long enduring, Athenian drama invited scrutiny. Even so, and tellingly, when the dialogues comment on poetry, they also look at it in tandem with the visual arts, not capriciously either, but in keeping with an ancient Greek tradition of comparing art forms, and in this approach toward an overarching theory, they deserve to be described as practicing or undertaking the philosophy of art. Ooh. James Porter argues that analogizing between art forms characterized a culture of sensualist aesthetic thinking before Plato, and so makes possible the early appearance of a general idea, art. Poetry commented on architecture, drama on rhetoric. In another fashion, tragedy compared itself to sculpture. Even if one finds some of these interpretations of aesthetic analysis controversial, there is no denying that the homoerotic Shield of Achilles passage implies a parallel between the shield's presentation of war and peace and the treatment of those subjects in Homer. What Hephaestus depicts on the shield, Homer depicts in his epics. The poet Simonides makes analogizing between art forms explicit. Painting is silent poetry, and poetry is painting that speaks. Plutarch, a common element unites the forms of art, even though poetry casts itself as the standard that painting fails to achieve, possessing as it does the voice that painting lacks. Plato's explication of poetic mimesis by means of the mimesis in painting, belongs in this analogizing tradition, as Aristotle's account of mimesis will after him. I don't know how to pronounce that. On both theories, painting and poetry belong together as fellow species within a larger artistic genus. However faulty the theory that joins them, it attempts to describe the broader genus. At the same time, Plato appears to consider painting on its own terms and not merely illustrating a process also found in poetry. Many passages speak in approving terms of painting and sculpture, or recognizing the skill involved in making them as a techne, profession, or craft. Even the famously anti-poetic Republic contains positive references to paintings and drawings. Sometimes these are metaphors for acts of imagination and political reform, sometimes literal images whose attractiveness helps to form a young ruler's character. In any case, visual arts appreciated on their own terms and for their own sake. When the Republic treats painting and poetry together, in other words, it does so possessed of an independent sense of visual depiction. It aims at developing a philosophy of art. The subject Plato's aesthetics calls for care. If perennially footnoted by later philosophers, Plato has also been much thumbnailed. Clichés accompany his name. It is worth going slowly through the main topics of Plato's aesthetics, not in the search for a theory unlike anything that has been said, but so that background shading and details may emerge for a result that perhaps contrasts with the commonplaces about his thought as a human face contrasts with the cartoon reduction of it. In what follows, citations, passages, and Plato use Stephanus pages based on a 16th century edition of Plato's works. The page numbers in that edition are, Jesus Christ. Okay, sorry.
Because it is teaching you how to return to the form of the good. And Plato's important because what happens is that Plato's ideas become the basis for heaven and earth, right? And so this is the basis for Christianity. Remember, in the Catholic Church doctrine, your life, our life on this planet doesn't really matter. What matters is our return to heaven to be with God.
Based, okay. That video. Newton's divine plan. Okay, we've done more physics lately, so we can do Newton. Let's go.
YouTube, Professor Jiang here.
Why does he call himself professor if he's a high school teacher?
Another update.
Okay. What do you got?
So things
Oh, this is a new video too, 9 hours ago. Let's go.
seem to have quieted down.
Read the description. In this talk, Professor Zhang explains how and why Isaac Newton founded Christian Zionism, which is driving the conflict in the Middle East today. If you want to better understand this topic, here are some suggestions for further reading. Observations upon the prophecies of Daniel and the Apocalypse of St. John by Isaac Newton, the Schofield Bible, Christian Zionism Wiki, Dispensationalism Wiki, and Isaac Newton Wiki.
In the Middle East. But as I said, all sides, United States, Iran, and Israel, have committed to war. And this ceasefire, it's really a way to attempt to control the narrative. Now, as you know, the Iranians have responded to the American bombing. The Iranians notified the Americans that they would send missiles against U.S. bases, empty U.S. bases in Qatar. And that seemed to be the full extent of the Iranian retaliation.
For now.
And Donald Trump was very pleased with this very tepid response. And many of you might be wondering, why was the Iranian response so tepid and so muted? And there's a lot of speculation online.
Yeah.
And so what I'll do is I'll offer you my explanation.
Okay.
If you're fully committed to war, why would you launch such a tepid response to U.S. aggression?
Yeah, because it seems like that was not the correct interpretation. And you know what was the correct interpretation?
The decade's happening, if you know what I mean. All right, this is the
Sometimes a decade happens in a minute, and sometimes minutes happen in a decade.
this is the decade's happening in weeks right now.
Yeah.
What we're hearing from
It's not. I'm all in. I'm all in on nothing ever happens. It's done in 4 days. Israel's going to bomb some more nuclear reactors. Iran's out of weapons. It's all over.
the country.
Breaking. The U.S. has completed bombing of Iran nuclear sites. Explosion at Fordo. Only political view is Hassan. Confidently wrong once again. Does this dude do anything other than watch Hassan? You guys. Nothing happened. We're all in. Oh my God, a new meme to Jack? Okay, but you tell us why nothing happened.
Well, the main reason is you want to infuriate your population.
What? Tell me.
Okay, so let me explain what I mean. Livy, the Roman historian, he wrote the entire history of the Roman Republic, and he wrote about one incident where a Roman legion went off to the frontier, and the natives confronted them, and they were outnumbered, so the Roman legion built fortifications. And every day, the natives would come and taunt the Roman soldiers. And at this point, the Roman soldiers really wanted to go out and fight the natives, but the commanders refused. The commanders ordered them to show restraint and to maintain defense. And as a result, the natives thought that the Romans were cowards. And so the decline became worse and worse. And it became so bad that the Roman soldiers were about to mutiny. And at this point, the commanders agreed for the Roman legion to attack the natives. And the Roman legion were so angry and so infuriated and so insulted that they slaughtered the natives. So that's what's happening in Iran today. The Iranian people are clearly insulted and humiliated by this U.S. bombing. And the Iranian government is holding them back, which even makes them more angry. And
The mountains were holding them back.
as U.S. aggression, as Israeli aggression increases, the Iranian response will become more and more tepid, more and more mute, and thus angering the population to the extent that the population will force the Iranian regime to declare war on the United States and
What?
Israel. So that's the game plan moving forward. So I would think that over the next month, things will be a bit quiet. There's still going to be a lot of incidents. So the Chinese media is reporting that the Iranian intelligence agency has uncovered an Israeli false flag operation in the United States. So over the next couple of weeks, we will still see some news regarding the Middle East, but I expect things to stay quiet for now. So I will use this opportunity to provide you some important background as to what's going on in the Middle East. So last video, I mentioned that there are certain elements within the American empire that want America to lose a war against Iran in the Middle East. And they want Israel to become the empire of the Middle East. And these people, these elements are called Christian Zionists. And so I want to today explain to you what Christian Zionism is and how it fits into this war in the Middle East. So the technical term for Christian Zionism is premillennial dispensationalists. Okay, so it's a very hard term, but I'm going to explain what it means.
Thank you.
By the way, I'll explain a lot of new terms in this video. So I will provide wiki links and some background reading in the description below. Okay, so please check the description if you want to further your understanding of the terms I introduced today. So premillennial dispensationalism is premillennial is the understanding that when Jesus returns, he will initiate 1,000 years of peace in the world, called the Messianic Age. Okay, that's why we have the term premillennial, because when Jesus returns, we will have 1,000 years of peace. Dispensationalist is the understanding that the world history is divided into certain stages. In each stage, the relationship between God and humans change. And we are now approaching the final stage, which is the full reconciliation with God through the second coming of Jesus. But for this second coming to happen, certain elements need to be in place. Okay? The first major element is that Israel needs to be reconstituted as a nation, which has already happened in 1948. Then all the Jews from around the world have to return to Israel. And then they have to destroy the Dome of the Rock, which is the third holiest site in Islamic tradition, and build the third temple. Then there has to be a war of Gog and Magog when Israel is besieged by a fierce enemy. And then this will lead to Armageddon, which is the final battle. And at the very last minute, when all hope is lost, when Israel is about to be defeated, Jesus will return. And he will initiate the Messianic Age. He will save Israel and he will initiate the Messianic Age. If you're a Christian, upon Jesus' return, you will be immediately sent to heaven. This is called the rapture. Okay. So that's the idea of Christian Zionism. And Christian Zionism, as explained before, is one of the main drivers of this war in the Middle East.
Okay.
And if Christian Zionists have their way, then certain things will happen. Okay. The most important thing that must happen is the United States send ground troops against Iran. Because as I mentioned, if the United States were to send ground troops into Iran, the American empire would fall, and which will give birth to the empire of Israel. This is important because in the Christian Zionist framework, America is not involved in this prophecy. So you need to take America out of this equation.
Yep,
okay?
true.
So that's the first thing that must happen. Second thing that must happen is the Dome of the Rock must be destroyed.
Okay.
If the Dome of the Rock were destroyed, the Jews could rebuild the third temple. But more importantly, it would unify the Islamic world against Israel, thus initiating the war of Gog and
Magog. Yes.
Another thing that must happen is the Jews must return to Israel. And right now, most Jews are living very nice lives in the Western world. So why would they want to return to Israel? Well, the answer is America has been defeated in Iran, and Americans are pissed about this loss. And so
they kill Jews.
Who do they blame?
Yes.
Who do they persecute? Who will be the scapegoat? And so you have this global surge of anti-Semitism. And so now you have major Jewish intellectuals coming out and say, listen, we should all return to Israel because that's where we'll most be safe. Okay, so if I'm correct and I if I'm correct in believing that Christian Zionism is a very powerful force in the world, then these three things will happen over the next few years. A U.S. ground invasion of Iran, the Dome of the Rock will be destroyed somehow, I don't know how. And the third thing is a movement to return Jews to Israel. So why is Christian Zionism so strong? Well, what I will show you today is Christian Zionism is embedded into the very foundations of the Anglo-American Empire. It's been there since the beginning.
Okay.
And it's been there since the beginning thanks to the contributions of one man, Isaac Newton. So let me tell you about Isaac Newton, and then you will better understand how Christian Zionism came to being and how it influenced the Anglo-American Empire.
Oh, shit.
Isaac Newton, as you know, was probably the most brilliant man who ever lived. He was an extraordinary man who lived an extraordinary life. He was born into a common family. His family was not nobility, not royalty, very common. His father died when he was very young, and his mother remarried and essentially abandoned Newton. But Newton was an extremely gifted student, and he eventually got a scholarship to study at Cambridge University, where he began to make the major contributions to the development of science. He made major contributions to optics. He invented calculus. He discovered the three laws of planetary motion, which proved conclusively, once and for all, that our solar system was heliocentric as opposed to geocentric. In many ways, Newton embodied the scientific revolution. When he died, he was given a state funeral. Only the second person in British history at that time who was non-royalty to be given a state funeral, and he was one of the only scientists to be given a state funeral. And even today, the British remember Isaac Newton as the most brilliant Englishman who ever lived. But there are three things that you may not know about Isaac Newton.
Tell me. Huge
and
cock.
Once I explain these three things,
Three
you'll have
things.
much more
There's always three things.
complete understanding
This guy's the master of three things. It's like Trump's 2 weeks. This guy always has three things for everything. Let's hear it. Three things.
of this brilliant man. The first thing that you probably don't know about him is that
He was an evangelical predispositionalist. What were they called? Oh, dispensationalismist, Christian Zionist.
he was fascinated by the occult. He was a major practitioner of the occult, mainly alchemy. Newton spent most of his life in search of the Philosopher's Stone, because the Philosopher's Stone promised the elixir of immortality, which would grant immortality. It also promised to turn lead into gold. And Newton was positive that it existed. So he spent most of his life in search of it. And we know about this because in the 1930s, the economist John Maynard Keynes, he bought Newton's papers on an auction, and he really believed that within these papers, he would discover mathematical secrets of the universe. Instead, what he discovered was all this religious gibberish from Newton. Newton spent most of his life studying the Bible, trying to figure out the divine messages embedded in the Bible. So if you were to ask Newton, like, what's your profession? Newton would never say he was a scientist or a philosopher. He would say, first and foremost, he was a theologian. He was most interested in discovering the mind of God. And that's why he developed his mathematical and physical systems, in order to better decipher the mind of God. Okay, so let me give an example of this. At this time in history, most Christians understood that history was teleological. Teleological comes from the Greek telos, which means purpose. So history is moving towards the end, which is the second coming of Christ. Newton's great insight was to understand that if history is indeed teleological, then it has structure and order, and therefore it can be expressed mathematically. And so if you can figure out the mathematical underpinnings of the world, then you've proven that history is teleological, and therefore you've proven that God exists.
Is he saying theological or teleological?
Newton's three laws of motion, right? Let's summarize Newton's three laws of motion.
Yes.
Number one, things that are at rest, stay at rest.
Okay.
Number two, force equals mass times acceleration.
Okay.
Number three, for every action, there must be an equal reaction.
Okay.
Okay? So what people don't understand is these three laws are not physical laws. They are first and foremost an ontological argument, which proves the existence of God. So the first law, things that are at rest must stay at rest. Okay, so we can imagine that at the beginning of time, everything was at rest. If everything's at rest, it can't move by itself according to the first law. Therefore, something must have moved things to put things in motion. And this is what Aristotle calls the prime mover. Second and third law implies that there's a structure and order and purpose to the universe. And who designed this structure, order, and purpose? It must be God. Okay? So what's interesting is that these three laws of motion, they prove that God exists. But much more importantly, they are the basis for a new religion movement called deism. And deism is important because deism is the main religion of the founding fathers of America. Okay? So
That's just one. Number two.
having proven that God in fact does exist, Newton's next step is, what does God want? What is God's purpose? Well, for him, it was easy. To understand God's purpose, read the Bible.
Okay.
So Newton would spend decades reading the Bible and trying to imagine its mathematical underpinnings. For him, every sentence was a mathematical formula. And he was trying to take the Bible and compare and contrast it with history. And he wrote a book. It was not published in his lifetime, but it was published after his death. It was called Observations upon the Prophecies of Daniel and the Apocalypse of St. John. And it's something you have to look at, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link down in the description below.
What that noise?
It's Daniel and the Apocalypse of St. John. And it's something you have to look at.
Is something trying to escape? Is there a creature in the...
Seas of Daniel, published in his life with history. And he wrote a book. It was not published in his lifetime, but it was published after his death. It was called Observations upon the Prophecies of Daniel and the Apocalypse of St. John. And it's something you have to look at, okay? So what I'm going to do...
Is he locked in a room like, Grandpa, stop talking to your phone. You got to get off YouTube, Grandpa. You're going crazy. Stop. Somebody open the door. Get him out. What is happening?
I'm going to put a link down in the description below, which will, and you can read it online for free, okay? So this is a major work, and it's a foundational text for Christian Zionism because it argues, first of all, that history is theological, that God has a purpose. And second of all, this is really important, the Bible is literal, okay? So
that kid's in trouble now.
Daniel
trying to break in.
John were different people. They both, as prophets, spoke the mind of God. They were divinely inspired, and so whatever they wrote came from God himself. So by examining their prophecies, you are deciphering God's purpose for humanity. Okay? And this is the foundation for Christian Zionism. Okay, so that's the first thing you need to understand about Newton, that he was, first and foremost, a theologian and not a scientist. Okay. Second thing that you must understand about Newton is that...
Is it so essential that you record this video? You can't just wait 1 minute? Kick this kid out. Punt him.
He was a member of secret societies in England at that time. Now, today when we think of secret societies, we think
of Bilderberger, and Rockefeller, and something.
Think of nefarious...
Oh, and the stonemasons.
Underground conspiracies. At that time, secret societies were actually very common and very well accepted. Secret societies were platforms for men of education, of wealth, and of status to get together to engage in religious speculation outside the purview of the Anglican Church. At the time, the Anglican Church had an orthodoxy, and by law, you cannot transgress against this orthodoxy. So, for example, Newton got into a lot of trouble during his lifetime because he did not believe in the Holy Trinity. He thought that Jesus was not co-equal to God. He thought that Jesus was subordinate to God. And this was a heresy at that time. So Newton got in a lot of trouble, but he had powerful friends, powerful backers, and so they bailed him out from the church authorities. So these societies were a platform for people to discuss religious matters. They also had their origins from the Knights Templars. The Knights Templars during the Crusades were in Jerusalem, and because they were in Jerusalem, they could engage in world religions like Zoroastrianism, like Islam, like Judaism, like paganism. And as such, and because these were extremely well-educated men with deep intellectual curiosity, they collected all the secret teachings that they were exposed to in Jerusalem, and they brought it back to them in Europe. And so they ran afoul. Okay? So when Newton joined these secret societies, and when he was able to discover the laws of the universe...
I feel like we abandoned the list of 3 things, but...
I imagine that these men celebrate Newton as a prophet, as a messiah, as a chosen one to the world. And because the world was not ready for these teachings, then they would make it their mission to keep it secret and wait for the day that God has a purpose, and this purpose is literally embedded into it. Now becomes the framework for these secret societies. And as they spread to America, it becomes embedded in the secret societies of America as well. And guess who were members of these secret societies? The founding fathers of America. Right? So,
fucking Metal Gear to the Patriots!
That's something you need to know about Newton, that he was a member of these secret societies who celebrated him and who treated his theological understandings as the word of God. Okay. And the third thing that you have to understand about Newton is for 30 years, he was master of the royal mint. And his purpose was to maintain the sanctity, the value, and the credibility of royal coinage against counterfeiters. And so to deal with counterfeiters, he set up a network of spies to identify these counterfeiters, sometimes to torture them for information, and for the most egregious offenders, they'll be executed. Okay? So in other words, Newton established England's very first intelligence agency, intelligence apparatus. In 1865, the United States Treasury Department established a secret service. What's their job? The job was to identify counterfeiters. Why were they called a secret service? Because the Treasury Department didn't want people to know they existed. Because if they existed, it meant that counterfeiting was a huge problem in America, which it was at that time, which it still is today. And so that would undermine the credibility
Bitcoin is so important.
The currency. Okay, so Newton had his own intelligence agency. So in many ways, Newton built the foundations of the British Empire, which eventually became the Anglo-American Empire, which controls the world today. So let's summarize, and I'll give you 3 takeaways from today's talk I want you to remember, okay? The first takeaway is, because Isaac Newton saw himself as a prophet, because he was convinced that only through divine favor could he arise from being a poor, abandoned child to becoming one of the leading intellectuals of British society, the leading scientist of British society. It could only be through divine favor. Then he had a mission to spread God's message.
Okay.
And that message will become the foundations of Christian Zionism. So Christian Zionism is embedded into the very fabric, the very foundation of the Anglo-American Empire. Okay, that's the first major takeaway. Second major takeaway is,
List of 3.
Israel is a creation of the Anglo-American Empire.
Okay.
Zionism is a creation of Christian Zionism, which leads us to the third takeaway. Judaism and Zionism are not the same thing. Christian Zionism and Judaism are in fundamental conflict. Let me explain why.
Okay.
The people who are most opposed to the creation of the state of Israel are Orthodox Jews, because in their tradition, in their religion, the plan is for God to send a Messiah.
Oh, that's actually true. Because it's not supposed to be created until... Who were the 3 losers? What were the 3 guys? Was it Isaac, Jacob, and Matt? No. Isaac, Abraham, Jacob, Abraham, those 3 guys? It was supposed to be like another dude who's supposed to come and make the next Israel. So the Orthodox Jews are like, you can't have this country until the one guy comes back for real. For real.
One who will lead the Jewish people. And this Messiah will bring the Jews back to the promised land, create the nation of Israel, build the third temple, and create the Messianic age. Okay? The Jews don't know who this Messiah is, and they don't know when he will come, and so they must be patient and have faith in God.
Okay.
Christian Zionism is an attempt to manipulate history, manipulate God to force the second coming of Jesus. In the mind of Christian Zionists, if the nation of Israel is reconstituted, if all the Jews return to Israel, if the third temple is built, if there's a war of Gog and Magog, then Jesus is forced to return.
Okay.
They will force the hand of God and create the Messianic age. So for Orthodox Jews, this is a blasphemy. This is counterfeiting. This is stealing their religion. And that's why Orthodox Jews are most opposed to the state of Israel. So I know this was an extremely controversial, very confusing talk. So what I'll do again is I will, in the description below, put all the links and the references you will need to truly understand Christian Zionism. So please look at Newton's book, Observations upon the prophecies of Daniel and the Apocalypse of St. John. Please look at the Scofield Bible, which frames the Bible in the lens of Christian Zionism. And please look at wiki entries for Christian Zionism, premillennial dispensationalism, Newton, okay, okay. What I'll also show you next in my next talk is that Christian Zionism, what's happening in the Middle East, it's happened before and it will happen again. Okay, so 1,500 years ago in the Middle East, it seemed as though biblical prophecy was about to be fulfilled. The world was at war against each other. Empires were fighting over Jerusalem, and millions were dying. The world seemed to be ending. It really seemed the end of history. And at this time, the Jews were praying for the Messiah. And they really believed the Messiah had come to them. Okay, a man came, and they really believed he was the anointed one. And he was able to rally not just the Jews, but everyone around him. He was so charismatic. And it really seemed as though the Messianic age would come. And these Jews were willing to die for him. That's how much they believed in him. This man's name? Well, actually, we don't know this man. Okay, so we're doing a special session of this class called Meet the Students. Now, I've been overwhelmed by the positive response online on YouTube. So thank you so much.
Bro, you're just like staring. I don't think this person has blinked.
For watching this channel and leaving comments and subscribing. I really appreciate it. It's just positive feedback for the work I do. So there's been a lot of questions online about this class and who I am. So I'm going to do 2 separate videos. The first video is I'm going to introduce you to my students, Echo, Amber, and Sichi. And then in another video, I'm going to talk about myself, okay? But this video is really about my students and their impressions of this class and how it has benefited them. I'm not free to tell people what the school is, okay? Because this is in China, and there's certain things that I say in this class that are sensitive. So I do not want to get my school into trouble, so we will not mention the school. in this video, but my students will tell you about their impressions of taking this class, okay? So my first question is for Siti. Now, Siti was in my class, not this year, but last year. So last year, there's a different version of this class where the first semester I taught the great books. Second semester I taught geopolitics, okay? And Siti has an interesting background because you were in Germany for a few years, right? And your father is professor of Immanuel Kant at Tsinghua. So you've encountered this sort of teaching before, okay? So my first question to you is, let's talk about the great books. What were your favorite great books, and why were they such? And why did you enjoy them so much? Can you speak into the mic, please?
So two of the most memorable books I can think of are the Iliad and Dante's Inferno. I really liked the Iliad already before the class, where I had read a simpler version, since it's a really popular book, and there has been many adaptations over the years. But in this class was the first time I really more in depth looked into the content of it, and I think that this class provided me a lot of new insights into the book and the kind of different backgrounds.
This is the school where they produce the Aegon Chocolarians or whatever. They come from this place. This is where they make them.
Especially also into the culture of the time with the kings and small kingdoms and cities and things like that. I remember afterwards we had also taken a look at the Aeneid. The Aeneid being, of course, from the Rome period, a very different period, which also took inspiration from the Iliad. And it was really interesting seeing the contrasting cultures of both.
Do Gilgamesh next.
Culture, especially in this class, I had already encountered the Aeneid as well before, but in this class we also talked about how much the Aeneid was taken as a propaganda piece at the time. So that was also really interesting to see. And with the Dante's Inferno, I had heard about it quite a bit many times, but never really had the chance to look into it. So I was really happy when we decided to start reading it, and taking such an in-depth look into specific parts of the book was really, very fun.
So I want to ask you about these books. How did they change your understanding of yourself and your relationship with the world, do you think?
So a few key ideas that I remember from last year is that the idea of game theory and the idea of imagination. So in all three of these books, the idea of imagination.
Where are my experts? Is this mic on, or are they just speaking into the mic on the camera? Like, you notice how you hear his shirt move and everything? Are they actually? Is this mic even working, or is it just one on the camera?
It's really important. For example, with the Iliad, I remember it was one of the first big works of imagination that we really have, where it developed imagination over the times afterwards a lot, with such a vivid description of a story. It really pushed people to the limits of what they could imagine, and it really changed them. So it was really interesting learning about that, and it definitely changed my view on how people perceive the world around them, and how we, for ourselves, for example, have very different perceptions from everyone around us. Of course, there's also the idea of game theory, where everyone does things according to certain situations and conditions that they face, and it really helps you think about why certain people do something and why certain conditions exist.
Okay. So is it fair to
Wait, this mic isn't even. They're not even using this mic. You hear him talk, right? It doesn't change. Listen to him.
Something and
What is
why certain conditions exist.
Okay. So is it fair to say that reading these books have made you more curious about the world?
Bro, what is this? Why does he talk about these same books all the time? And I feel like a lot of the videos we've watched, it's like, and this is why in Rome and in the Iliad, and this is why we have to look at a game theory. That's all the kids learn. What is this? The whole class is 3 kids in a secret school?
And have made you more observant about the world around you?
Yeah, I would definitely say that it's making me more curious.
Thank you.
I've already initially had a big interest in literature and ancient history. So these books kind of re-sparked this enthusiasm of learning more about it. I afterwards also looked a bit more into these books myself, and discourse.
Question is,
this one's
how do you feel about history now that we've covered all the major episodes of human history?
All of human
Second of all, how has learning history changed your understanding of the world we live in today? Okay, so these are 2 big questions. You can answer one or both.
To be fair, the books mentioned are key works in human history. Oh, the Odyssey, the Iliad, and Dante's Inferno? Maybe in an English class, but...
The first question, I think what this course really gave me a lot of insights on was how there are certain things that we take for granted that are kind of changed or challenged in this course. For instance, I remember the very first class that we did was on how humanity transitioned from hunter-gatherer to an agricultural society. And
explicitly most important works of all time. Yes, for English, for literature. Yes. History? The Iliad and the Odyssey, these are poems. This is like great poetry. It was eventually written down, but this is like...
Well, that idea of the agricultural society being more stable is like kind of a modern view on this issue.
The class was called Great Books. Yeah, but I think the point of this guy's class, he teaches like all of human history in like 60 things or whatever, like civilization. That's what this is, I think.
For granted, but like what we learned from this class is that religion actually has a lot of influence on this transition. Like how setting down was like really beneficial for practicing religions and the rituals, and as a huge factor that shaped this transition.
Epics, not poems. What an epic is short for epic poem. Rope.
So I think my understanding of history has been challenged quite a lot of ways in this course in terms of it challenges me to think deeper into the things that we viewed from the modern society, or like a view that
it's an epic book. Fuck me, I hate this shit. But I'm sorry. Hold on. Was the Iliad not? The Iliad was spoken poetry. Was it not? Am I crazy? The Iliad was not a written book. It was eventually they wrote it down and they transcribed it. Wasn't it recited? Wasn't it done as a performance? Wasn't the Iliad poetry that people would remember and speak? I can't tell if I'm getting rage baited. Stop.
We take for granted. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Tom. Thank you.
Okay, my turn. I think for the first question, what is the history that we learned from this class? I think firstly is that for the education except for formal and like middle school or something else, history is more like about what happened before and simply the events, the time, the person. But I think in this course, it's more like an intersectionality between the politics, economic, and civilization, culture, stuff like this. And actually, when you see the complexity of the civilization, and also what I wanted to also credit to echo what's saying is that a very, very important insight from this history class is that the power of religion, or saying that's not maybe particular.
You realize people spoke that long? Who would listen? What the bro? They didn't have cell phones back then.
A religion with ritual, with doctrine, but more like how belief is impact to the people, to the community, to the society, and also to talking about what changed my mind. I think a very important part is that history.
Wait, where is this girl from? Why? This is not. Does every young person in Beijing learn how to speak flawless English with no accent? I don't understand.
Not linear. Sometimes is not being like always been improved, and it's actually more about people's will, belief, their choice at the current situation, and let me think about like, especially I want to talk about very
Actually, slow down.
Class is about the Inca Empire. Is that you mentioned about like we learn from the death, we learn from the past, we learn from the mistakes we have made. So I think like, from this point of view, I'm more thinking about like history is like a book about making mistake, and we learn from the experience instead of to say that history is always being grand, excellence, and
Great. Thank you so much. Okay. So great. Thank you so much. My next question is, I want you to reflect.
Destiny has never heard of an international school. I live in America. I don't have to learn about international schools, motherfucker. So no, I don't have any idea what I thought international schools were people taught English in other countries, so people could learn English from people that want to leave America but have no other way to do so. So they learn how to teach in international school.
To this course, this 1 year, okay? And tell me at what point, what did I say or what did I teach you that was like most shocking to you? And you heard it, you were kind of stunned or shocked. And this is do you have a moment like this during this course when I said something you're like, this is just completely shocking and bewildering to me? Okay, how about you, Echo?
Yeah, like for me, that goes back to the class when we were talking about religion. One idea that you mentioned was like people are like all human beings are fundamentally religious, and that was like quite shocking because like for me, I kind of like I don't personally believe in any religion. And
do they do religion in China, or is that like a godless communist thing or whatever? I don't know what their position is on that. Modern China stuff.
I kind of reflecting on like my own life, religion seems like pretty far away, and like it's quite being denied by our society right now. And like by learning about the history of like the Greeks and like the Romans and all that kind of stuff, like what I realized is that the most creative societies were those that praised the poets and all those like theaters the most, and that's like how the Greeks celebrated Homer, and like that's really the part that makes us human. And so going back to the idea of
fighting against
that idea is kind of denied in this modern society, which values rationality over these fundamental aspects that makes us human. And so, like, we read part of the poems and like the literatures, and that really like resonates with me in terms of like after such a long time in history. But that connection and emotion that we share as human beings are just irreplaceable.
Great, thank you so much, Amber.
I'm like very agree with what Echo said, because religion or say religious belief is like a very important.
Echo, Amber. Like names you would give dolphins at SeaWorld.
Lots of percentage in our course. And one argument is very insightful for me during the classes that people actually sometimes want to live in a dream instead of to face the reality. I think this actually explains a lot of my confused like my confusion to the past worse and to my life in other aspects. And also another point is that when you talk about lots of celebrity in history, you would state that sometimes their internal logic is to make them becoming the god. This is also kind of a very, very new way to interpret these people's their logic and strategies. Because as Echo said, we are living in China.
Wow, Sathiel, thank you for subscribing. 26 months.
Religious beliefs. So these stuff are usually being far from our life. But from such kind of a lecture, I think it actually let me know more about. Even though we seem need to transform to modern society, we're actually still using a lot of the experience from the past. We are still credits or saying respect to the history, even sometimes we're not aware of.
I'm going.
Great, thank you so much. So as a teacher, I just feel so gratified that you've enjoyed this course, but also I can see that it's changed all of you for the better. It's made you more curious. It's made you more observant. It's made you more critical. And you're able to take these ideas and reflect back on your society around you and question it further, okay? Which was my objective to begin with. So I feel extremely gratified. Thank you so much, okay? Now, another question is, there's lots of people online who are just curious. You guys are Chinese students. You're excellent Chinese students. City's going to Germany for university. There's lots of people online who are just curious. You guys are Chinese students. You're excellent Chinese students.
Extra attorney student? What is he saying?
Thank you so much, okay? Now, another question is, there's lots of people online who are just curious. You guys are Chinese students. You're excellent Chinese students.
Attorney students? I don't know.
City's going to Germany for university. Amber and Echo are going to America.
Returning? Excellent.
So,
wait, where are they
Germany
going?
For university. Yes. You guys are Chinese students. You're excellent Chinese students. City's going to Germany for university. Amber and Echo are going to America.
Okay.
So,
well, not anymore. Not since Trump. Don't come to our country. No more infiltrators.
People want to hear. You are the future of China. What are your plans? What do you want to study in university? What do you want to do after university? How do you see your career trajectory and your life trajectory? Okay, so maybe we'll start with Echo.
I'm going to Carleton College at the United States.
So get Carleton, say hi. Okay.
Yeah, in this is September, and I applied as an undecided major because I want to explore more, especially on history, sociology, and maybe psychology and all kinds of areas. Because especially in this class, what I think is really valuable is that you took multiple perspectives in viewing history as a whole, how geopolitics impact his historical development and some of the psychological aspects, as well as a lot of interconnected disciplines. So I really wanted to explore more about them. So I'm not sure what my major would be.
Perfect answer.
Good one.
I'm going to New York University for liberal studies.
So say hi to Amber.
Say hi to
New York City.
So the program I apply is basically about liberal arts and humanities. So I have already registered for courses about antiquity and.
Is that the same? Is NYU that does undergrad the same as the law school, or are those two different things?
Writing and also history and politics.
So this class is actually preparation for.
Yes, definitely for college.
Wow.
And for future plan, actually. Quite don't know because I haven't participated to the conference.
Different?
So
Same.
Definitely.
Thanks, guys.
I still want to do something for my hometown and society and whatever. Because I'm besides a fan of history, I'm also a feminist, and they all know that. So I might do something for feminism, gender studies, and also with history and humanities. I think this is the part that we are currently not being very valued or encouraged in Chinese society, and I hope it can be enlightened again.
Ooh, 4B stuff.
So I'm thinking of going back to Germany. Well, since applications aren't finished yet, I'm not quite sure where I'll be going, but it's probably in the state of Baden-Württemberg. I'm planning on either studying history or philosophy. I think I'm going to likely pursue it as far as I can, maybe into a PhD. And for future plans, it's going to be a long time still, so I'm not that sure yet. But I am hoping that since culture and education is very different from China to Europe and especially Germany. And I think it's important to have a combination of cultures to be able to see things from very different perspectives. So I possibly will return to China with the knowledge I've gained in Europe. And it's not really about imposing Western ideas on Chinese society, but rather a combination of it. And maybe it will help with having more different views on society and different issues.
Wow.
Okay, great. So fantastic. Okay. Just hearing your answers, I know all three of you will be very successful in university, and you will achieve all that you aim for. You guys are smart, observant, hardworking. You guys are going to be very successful in life. All right. So I have complete faith in all three of you. Okay. My last question. Okay. And
social issues.
Feel free. You don't have to answer it. Okay. But I want to answer this question.
All right. Hold on.
Because I think a lot of people online are just curious. How do you see the state of the world and society today.
Okay.
One more
question.
thing I taught you last year that you've internalized is the idea that there are structures and forces to the movement of politics, geopolitics. And if we study these structural forces, we have a better understanding of what's happening, but also we can better influence what's happening. Thank you. Okay. Do any of you also want to comment?
How to view the world.
Yeah, like what are issues that concern you about the world today or in society today? You talk about feminism. So what is about China you think that you're concerned about and you want to focus more about in the future, society and the world?
I think one thing I actually observed from this course is also aside me is that world is like more brutal than I thought before. So
very brutal.
But also as we have mentioned in the class, I think civilization is a cycle. It's like I think there's no need to be too worried about the world or the politics because we are always in a point of
a cycle.
We are
birth and rebirth.
In a process, and I think we definitely can learn something or saying that ask for some hints from the past, from the history. So that's I think the also the meaning of continued learning. And you're talking about feminism. I'm curious about such topic more from my family, actually not about lots of like a big picture. So I think
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. One quick diversion meme. You want to know like a pet peeve that I always have? The general incompetence that they show of like the military or police or the state whenever there's like a crisis. This really was, you know what I mean? Hold on. Game of Thrones, Tyrion, Bran. Hold on. Let me find this.
Things get bad enough. The poor start eating each other.
There always is this like guy who's like, you know, like I'm from the streets. And I'm like, okay, well, we're trying to figure out how to win the war. So we're reading over, you know, how did people do in the past? Like, you know what they don't have in those books? They don't tell you about people starving. And I was like, why would that not be? Why would like supplies for food to keep people from not starving? Why would that not be written about in any of the history books on wars and siege? Aye, but did you know they be eating themselves? Cannibalism. They need food. Like, really? Like, there's always like some scene in some show or some movie where some shit like this happens, where it's like somebody has to do some crazy. It's like, you know, they don't write there that when people shoot guns, they get scared. You don't know what it's like to hear a gunshot and be afraid that you're gonna die in like a boot camp. And it's like, well, no, they probably that's specifically what they're training for. I don't know. I hate it when they always so dumb. Okay, I need to sleep. Meet Professor Jiang. Why does he call himself Professor? Do we ever figure that out?
Hi, YouTube.
Hi.
This is Professor Jiang. Today is my last day in Beijing. Tomorrow morning, I board a flight with my two boys for Toronto, Canada. That's
2 weeks ago, I bet he's already done his Joe Rogan episode.
where I was. That's where I grew up. My parents are there. So it's really the first time my kids
That's where I grew up. He's Canadian?
seeing their grandparents. And everyone's really excited about it. This morning, my wife and I, we sent our three kids to kindergarten. Then we went to the hospital. So it's really the first base for Toronto, Canada, Beijing. Tomorrow morning, I board a flight with my two boys for Toronto, Canada. That's
What? Why is he has two kids in one place and one kid in another place? Two boys? What?
where I was. That's where I grew up. My parents are there. So it's really the first time my kids are seeing their grandparents. And everyone's really excited about it. This morning, my wife and I, we sent our three kids to kindergarten. Then we went to the hospital so I could do some blood work. I have high blood pressure. I turn 50 next year. So my wife is very anxious about my health. And then after the hospital, I checked the news and Israel is attacking Iran. So I, in my previous videos, have said that this would happen, but I am surprised by the accelerated timeline. It seems we're headed towards World War III far faster and far harder than I could ever imagine. Like everyone else, I'm just praying and hoping that things turn out for the best, but also preparing for the worst. So this is really the first time that I've had a chance to talk directly to you guys. So let me tell you about myself, why I'm teaching this course, and what my plans are for the future of this class. So
yeah, this guy's just like, he's just walking through a mall. Or is it an airport? No, he's at the airport. Sorry.
I was born in China in 1976, but when I was 6, my family and I immigrated to Toronto, Canada, and my family was poor, but I worked really hard. I got a full scholarship to go to Yale University, and I was really thankful to my teachers and the opportunity to empower myself for education. So after I graduated from Yale with a degree in English literature, I returned to China, and I've been ever since working in education, doing everything I could possibly do in order to promote education reform in China. And I've worked various capacities. I've obviously worked as an English teacher, but I've also worked as a principal, curriculum director, a teacher trainer. I've worked in all levels of education in China kindergarten, primary school, junior high, high school, university as well. 3 years ago, I got hired at this school that I'm at now, a private school in Beijing that helps students go abroad. And I first came in actually as a curriculum director, overseeing the humanities curriculum at the school, which is what I specialize in. But the school needed teachers because of COVID. It was really hard to recruit teachers back then. So I was teaching AP English. And it was my first time teaching advanced placement English. I really didn't know what I was doing. So I just thought that we would just read a lot of books. So the kids and I, we read Julius Caesar, Paradise Lost, Virginia Woolf, Dante Divine Comedy.
Oh my God. These are all the books from my AP English 4 class. Maybe that's, and 3. I think there's these horrible, horrible things. The Iliad, the Odyssey, the Gilgameshes, the Dante's Inferno, these horrible Beowulf. Oh God. That's why he uses them so much.
The Iliad, and the kids loved it, and I loved teaching it. So in the second year...
What if you could teach those books for every subject?
I built a great books program at the school. And again, it was extremely successful. We read the Iliad, the Odyssey, the Ennead, the Bible, the Divine Comedy, and the kids loved it.
What is the Ennead? Did I miss it? I don't even know what that is.
But while teaching it, I recognized there's a problem. And the problem was the kids, being Chinese, had absolutely no historical context to work with. So this year, I started to develop a new program, which is a program that you've been experiencing for the last 60 classes. My goal this year was to teach the entirety of human history from the Ice Age up until the American Empire, which is what I taught yesterday.
The Aeneid. What is this? It's a Latin epic poem that tells the legendary story of Aeneas, a Trojan who fled the fall of Troy and traveled to Italy. Damn. Okay.
Today. And again, it's been great for the kids. And it's been great for me because it's really offering me an opportunity to think very deeply about history. Specifically, it's giving me an opportunity to think about the possibilities of history. And over the course of teaching this course, I've decided that I want to create a new intellectual movement, a new sort of history. And I call it predictive history. And the idea is that in the future, I hope that history is able to accomplish 3 major goals. The first goal is to connect...
Another list of 3. Adapt your terrain. Don't have hubris.
The events of the past into a coherent story. Second is to help us understand and explain the present. And the third goal is to be able to predict the future.
Holy
shit. If what we teach accomplishes all 3 goals, then it must be true history. And I think if we have true history, then we, humanity, the world, can better organize, can better control our future. And that's my ambition. As you can imagine, I was deeply inspired by the works of Isaac Asimov. As a young boy growing up in Toronto, Canada, I didn't have that many friends, but I read a lot of books. And one of my favorite series was Foundation series. And in it, I think Asimov proposed the idea of psychohistory, which is the idea that we can mathematically model the present and the past so as to predict the future. And that, I think, will be my future ambition moving forward. I want to build intellectual foundations for the possibility of psychohistory. And that's my long-term thinking. So about this course. So I initially uploaded the classes so that my students can review the lectures because these are Chinese students and their English is not that great. There were a couple hundred subscribers initially, and everyone was fantastic. I'm so thankful for these initial subscribers because they believed in me, they commented, gave me valuable feedback, and I try to interact with them as much as possible. This past month, something odd happened. My channel just blew up. I went from like 300 subscribers at the beginning of May to about 20,000 as we speak right now, and it's constantly growing. And the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. So thank you so much for subscribing, for liking, for commenting. I try to read every comment, but as you can imagine, there's just so many comments. And I would like to respond to every one of them. But again, there's so much going on in my life. I have 3 young kids that I have to take care of with my wife. I also have to prep for classes. And because I have 3 young kids, I've been sick a lot. It's allergy season in China. COVID's still going strong. So I'm just trying my best right now to take care of my kids. So my apologies if I don't respond. I will try to respond over the summer. But again, I'm so thankful for all the support, all the positive feedback that I've received recently. So I finished teaching the course yesterday. 60 classes covering the entire span of human history. And a lot of you are curious as to what the plans are moving forward. Well, tomorrow I'm going to Toronto to rest, recuperate, relax. The summer is also a really good time for me to reflect on what I've taught and how I can improve the course. I'll also be doing a lot of reading. Some of you have suggested email taught, which I will go into deeply this summer. I also look at Oswald Spengler very carefully. Some of you have commented that I'm very weak in terms of philosophy. Marx, Hegel, Kant are pretty weak. I'm pretty weak at, and I admit that. So this summer I will try to brush up on my philosophy. I also need to study economics in depth as well. So Adam Smith and other economists, because that really right now is the weak point in my analysis. True. I don't have enough classical economics in my background to fully comment on what's happening economically in the world. So that's my plan. When I return to Beijing in mid-August, I'll be teaching a new iteration of this course. So rather than 60 classes, I'll try to cram everything into 30 classes. Now, some of you have bravely watched all 60 classes. I guarantee you, in this new series, you'll be really impressed and you'll really enjoy it. I'm going to add tons of new material, and I'm going to make the themes much more salient, much more coherent, so that you can see the underlying structures of human history much more clearly. Second semester, which starts in February, will be a lot of fun. Second semester, I'll be teaching geopolitics. So what I'll be doing is I'll be looking at current events, trying to analyze.
All right. Let's see what we've learned, okay? Can you please create a 10-question multiple choice quiz on world history that an advanced PhD math level student of history should be able to answer? Allow me to answer individually and don't hide and don't show the answer until I answer. Is that even like a real thing? Is that a real sentence? Okay, go. Let's do this, guys, okay? Let's go. Please create a 10-question, extremely difficult multiple choice quiz on world history. An advanced PhD level student of history, professor of history. Let's go. Let's go. Which of the following best describes the significance of the 1371, the Battle of Maritza? Oh, shit. Southeastern Europe. Okay, well, think about Rome. Okay. It halted the expansion of the Ottoman Empire into the Balkans for 2 decades. Resulting in the death of King Davitko I of Bosnia. Okay. It effectively destroyed the Serbian-led resistance against Ottoman advance into the Balkans, and it marked the beginning of the Fourth Bulgarian. Oh, this is where the Serbs got smashed in this one. I remember that. Easy. Which of the statements about the 16th century Aceh Sultanate in Sumatra, Sumatra is most accurate? Well, it was the first Southeastern Asian state to adopt Confucianism as its court ideology. It was a major center of Islamic scholarship and a rival to Portuguese Malacca. It was primarily a Hindu-Buddhist kingdom until the 18th century, and it allied with the Dutch East India Company to expel Portuguese forces from Java. I think that was the, hold on. Confucianism, for sure. But that's okay. We've got this. We still got a 90%. During the reign of the Roman Emperor Macrinus, which of the following was a primary reason for his unpopularity among the Roman legions? His harsh persecutions of Christians in Syria, his non-senatorial equestrian background and military pay cuts, his attempt to reconquer Britain from native rebels, and his marriage alliance with the Parthian royal family. Oh, they don't like those pay cuts. That's what it all comes down to. It's because he came from a non-equatorial senatorial background. In the context of medieval Ethiopia, what was the significance of the Solomonic dynasty's restoration in 1270 under Yakuno Amlak? Well, it formalized Ethiopia's conversion to Sunni Islam. It reestablished a claim of descent from the Aksumite emperors to the Zagwe line. It replaced a local Oromo confederation that had ruled since the 9th century, and it reasserted a legendary Solomonic descent from the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon. Well, the story of the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon is one that's told through the ages. Everybody knows that one. Which of the following best characterizes the role of the Treaty of Kuchuk-Kanaka, 1774, obviously, in Ottoman-Russian relations? It permanently ceded control of the Levant to Russia. It granted Russia the right to intervene in Ottoman affairs to protect Orthodox Christians. It established an Ottoman-Russian condominium over Crimea, or it marked the first Ottoman alliance with the Austrian Habsburgs against Prussia. Let me think now. I'm trying to remember if this was... It was D. This one pissed off Why would they even do that? That sounds like a horrible treaty. Okay. Question 6. That's okay. We're talking 8 out of 10. Which of the best explains why the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom's ideology, that sounds like a Street Fighter final move or something. Okay. Heavenly Kingdom's ideology was considered so radical for mid-19th century China. Oh. This is something I should probably actually know. It adopted Confucian principles and reinstated the traditional examination system. It promoted female equality and communal ownership of property. It aligned with the Qing dynasty to defend against European colonial encroachment. And it sought to revive Mongol Yuan dynasty's administrative system. Okay, the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom. You know, let's think. I'm leaning, I've got a D. No. Well, B. Females. It's all about women. We're all about women here. Yes! In the 1928 Treaty of Sèvres, I feel like I read about this one, ultimately superseded by the Treaty of Lausanne, included which of the following provisions? The formal annexation of Albania by Italy, the division of Anatolia into zones of influence for European powers, creation of an independent Armenian kingdom in eastern Thrace, the restoration of the Ottoman Caliphate's authority over Egypt. So dumb. Clearly B. Okay, that's one I actually know. Okay. as a PhD of history, of course. Okay. This guy energized my brain. Okay, we're good. Which of the best describes the geopolitical effect of the Aro Confederacy's power in and African history? I did this a lot too. Confederacy power in southeastern Nigeria before the British conquest of 1902. Okay. The Aro Confederacy created a stable Islamic state in partnership with the Sokoto Caliphate. It monopolized slave trading routes through a religious oracle system. It unified Yoruba kingdoms under a federal kingship and allied with the Ashanti Empire to repel British incursions. Oh, they do be fighting against the Brits in 1902, I think, for sure. They were still trading slaves in 1900 whatever? To who? Damn. Come on, guys. Okay. Which statement best, have we missed 2 or 3? We can still pass. Which statement best explains the diplomatic achievement of the Peace of Oliva in 1660? It secured Polish-Lithuanian control of Livonia against Sweden. It ended the Northern Wars by confirming Swedish sovereignty over Livonia. It transferred Courland to Brandenburg, Prussia, and it recognized Danish control of Scania in perpetuity. I think this was the one that finally brought the Northern Wars to an end, I think. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, in the great context of the Great Syrian Revolt from 1925 to 1927, which of these factors most likely fueled a popular support across sectarian lines? A promise of a Hashemite monarchy backed by Britain, the unification of all Syrian regions under an Ottoman administrative structure, opposition of French mandatory rule and colonial taxation policies, and a coordinated uprising directed by Saudi Arabia's Wahhabi leadership. Did France have the mandate on Syria? Oh, hold on. They didn't put one of those in Syria, did they? I don't think so. 1925 to 1927. It can't be B. It is B. Let's go.